How are we doing, Jamie?
All good, all good. Same old, same old.
Do you want to introduce yourself, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I can introduce myself. So I'm James Dixon. I'm a professional MMA fighter and coach out of Coventry, specifically Lions Gym. I've got a professional record of 2 wins, 1 loss. Amateur record of 6 wins and no losses. Christ, I'm trying to remember. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Braulio Estima. I don't think that's probably everything that's worth noting. Might be a few more bits, but that's probably about it.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it as far as I could tell. K1 amateur 1-0.
Yep,
Right?
yep.
Sanshao 1-0.
Yep.
Muay Thai amateur 0-1.
Yep.
Couldn't get your jiu-jitsu record as much as I tried.
Like I said, I did have it written at some point, but I've seemed to have lost this, unfortunately. But I mean, I've competed more so in the early days, like white belt, blue belt, and purple belt. Competed extensively, and then pretty much from that moment on, I was really focused towards MMA. You know, so I sort of drifted away from the jiu-jitsu, and focused more competing towards, MMA and whatever, striking martial arts. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely had a lot of jiu-jitsu experience from white to purple.
Is that something you'd go back to?
Yes and no. Thing is, I mean, I'm a very competitive person, you know what I mean? So for me to go and compete in a jiu-jitsu perspective, I would like to be giving my all to jiu-jitsu. Like, I think it'd be different, right? Let's say, like, these super fights, I think they're quite interesting, you know, when you get 2 maybe MMA fighters that have a jiu-jitsu super fight, that would interest me. But when we're looking at a competitive level, if I was to compete against jiu-jitsu practitioners, like I said, I'd want to be training jiu-jitsu as much as them to obviously give myself a chance to win, and that would mean taking away from my MMA training, obviously. So for me to compete properly in jiu-jitsu, I'd either A, want to be done with my MMA training, retired MMA, then maybe I would focus more jiu-jitsu, or maybe like a super fight, against, like I said, another MMA fighter, where I feel like the playing field's a little bit more level,
Is there anyone local that would interest you in terms of that?
Oh, Christ, good question. I'm not actually too sure, to be fair. There's just thinking off the top of my head, especially locally, of any MMA fighters with a relatively high jiu-jitsu pedigree, and I honestly can't think of many. Not around my weight, anyway. So yeah, no one specifically. I mean, really, any MMA fighter would intrigue me in a jiu-jitsu specific matchup, but no names spring to mind.
Who locally interests you in MMA then?
Fight-wise, I mean, I wouldn't say locally. In terms of the Midlands area, I can't think again of anybody massively off the top of my head. But I mean, when we look at locally in terms of the UK, then for sure it's a little bit of a shame he just got signed by the UFC. But Ian Gary, I'd love to fight this guy. Ian Gary and Paddy Pimblett, again, these are 2 names, that I would really enjoy fighting and matching up against. And to be fair, not because I dislike him, but Mason Jones, again, he's in the UFC, but just because I think that would be a cracking fight. I know Mason Jones comes to fight, and I really admire his warrior spirit, and I just think like we would have an absolute spectacular fight. So Mason Jones, like I said, not because there's any animosity there, just because I respect him, so much. But to be fair, Ian Gary and Paddy Pimblett wise, I'm not a huge fan of these people.
Do you think these people are aware that you're on the scene?
No,
maybe it's a hard
probably
question
not.
for you to answer.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I can only go through my perspective, right? And yeah, I can't imagine I'm that big, especially in like the Cage Warriors and now UFC for all 3 of them, scene where they would know me. I mean, maybe they might recognise my face, or maybe they would have seen a fight previously. But I can't imagine it's something that I'm on their radar as such. But I mean, I can definitely say without a doubt I will be. I'm very confident that I'll be in Cage Warriors 2022, and these people will start to see what I'm capable of.
Have these conversations been had yet with Cage Warriors?
To some degree, not extensively. Again, I mean, my management, they don't fill me in on all the ins and outs of conversations, and I don't really go asking, to be fair. But like I say, I'm very confident once I get past my next fight in October. I'm very confident Cage Warriors are going to want to have me on their show.
So Cage Warriors is where you want to end up next?
Yeah, so I've thought about this a lot, like there was, when we talked to my management, there was the possibility of Brave being interested in me. But, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't turn down a fight with Brave. It is a big show, but just because I watch all of their shows for Cage Warriors, I'm very accustomed to all of their roster and their champions. And I just feel like it's so prestigious, and it's obviously the gateway show to the UFC. Cage Warriors is what I visualise, Cage Warriors belt is what I visualise. So this is something I really want to pursue. Like I said, I would not say no to Brave, I would not say no to Bellator, etc. But Cage Warriors is just something that, is a big goal of mine. I can't put my finger as to why, other than just because I watch it so much,
Cage Warriors is a new lightweight champ, right?
Yes, yeah. So he won it just on the last show. To be fair, he does look impressive. I forgot his name, an Irish guy. But I feel like who he took the belt from...
Joe McColgan?
Yes, yeah, that's the one. He's been hyped quite a lot, But again, the previous champ, who again just won the lightweight belt, I wasn't impressed with. I didn't feel like he was that dangerous of a fighter. Sort of like a low-level grappler, but just tend to out-grapple people. So, I don't know. He's got a good record, but I don't feel like that's an impressive victory too much in terms of level. But yeah, their champ has been hyped a lot. So, I've not seen much of him. I can't pass judgment, but I did see a little bit of the previous guy, and I wasn't impressed.
Is it just lightweight you're interested in then?
No. So, again, talk about Mason Jones. I really liked Mason Jones's approach to how he went around Cage Warriors and then in turn the UFC. So Mason Jones started at welterweight. He got the welterweight belt in Cage Warriors, then dropped to lightweight, won the lightweight Cage Warriors belt, and then went over to the UFC and now fights at lightweight. And I think his idea was, again, forgive me, I might be mistaken, but I believe his idea was he's not a massive welterweight, but he was very confident. On the national scene, he could smash welterweights. You know what I mean? And by fighting a bit more closer to his natural weight, he could get more fights in. He doesn't damage himself with the weight cut, etc. But then he knows when he gets to the UFC, he's going to have to cut weight to lightweight, right? Because, the level's going to be higher. People are going to cut more weight. People have got a bit more of a scientific approach with their weight cuts. So I think he prepared by going lightweight just for one fight in Cage Warriors, winning that belt, and then making his way to the UFC and staying at a lightweight. And I like that approach, when I look at the welterweights in Cage Warriors, I know where I stand. I'm very confident I can give a lot of them a run for their money. Obviously, should I get out muscled, out strength or whatever, I will drop to lightweight. I can fight a lightweight, but just fighting at welterweight will give me more options. I can take fights a little bit more last minute. I won't need 12 weeks, for example, to cut weight. So yeah, I feel like I'm going to go through a bit more of a Mason Jones approach, look for that welterweight belt, drop to lightweight, and then go from there, see where the world takes me.
You, as long as I've known you, you've been really interested in the world of MMA in terms of your mentality towards weight classes and weight cutting. You like the weight cut. It prepares you. That's what you say. How do you feel it prepares you?
Yeah, so it's bizarre. It's almost like a ritualistic process. Your body's almost preparing for war. I mean, there's no two ways about it as well. It fills you with rage. You know what I mean? So you definitely want to go in there and punch the dude for putting you through such a process. But so I definitely feel like it prepares me mentally. But I like the scientific approach as well. Trying to find the best method. I mean, it's the same approach I have with fighting, right? Like if I've got a problem when I'm sparring or when I'm fighting, I'm always trying to think my way around it, strategize my way around it. And it's the same with weight cutting, how can I more efficiently and effectively take the weight off, then obviously replenish the weight and put the weight on. So, yeah, not only do I feel like it prepares me mentally for war. It's like I said, it's got that ritualistic process, and it gets me in a certain headspace where I want to go and fight a guy. But yeah, I enjoy the science behind it, or the bro science behind it at least.
How did you learn that process?
So I got like little bits of information from Jimmy. So Jimmy Warlade has obviously cut weight extensively throughout his career. So he told me like little snippets of information, but we're talking years ago when I had my first sort of fight, and I wasn't cutting much weight. I wasn't cutting really any weight, but like he would just tell me about the water load process, but it was very much just like surface information. It wasn't anything in depth. And even then we're talking, this is like 9 years ago. So the world of weight cutting was far more different than it was now, you know. So it was just sort of drink 8 to 10 litres of water a day, you know, whatever, a week to 2 weeks out, stop it a day before the fight, and then just like sit in a hot bath sort of thing, you know. It wasn't really a scientific approach. Like I said, it was very, I mean, it still is bro science, but it was even more bro science, you know. And then, you know, as everyone does, you know, I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours looking on forums, watching YouTube videos, reading books that other weight cut, you know, self-proclaimed weight cut specialists have written, you know, paid for PDFs, listened to podcasts. You know, I've spent hours and hours and hours researching now what I feel is a very good method for myself of cutting weight.
How much, out of interest, did you cut for your first amateur fight?
My first amateur fight, interesting. You know what, I can't even remember properly. So my first amateur fight, it was at featherweight, so what's that, about 66 kilo. I would have probably been walking around anywhere from like high 60s to a 70. I don't think I would have been higher than 70 kilo. Like I said, I was only 18 years old. And from memory, I probably competed at the 70 kilo bracket with a gi on. So again, I'd probably been about 68 to 70 kilograms. But I do remember my opponent actually missed weight. So I got a phone call the day before the weigh-in saying that he can't make weight and that we wanted a catch weight of 150 pounds. So of course I accepted it, because it was either yes and I accept it and I fight, or I don't accept it and I don't fight. And of course I'm going to fight, right? So yeah, he actually missed weight. I think I weighed in at the 145 pound limit still. He weighed in at 150 pounds. But yeah, probably no more than a few kilos. And again, it probably would have been more so through body fat, you know, than actual water manipulation.
So you cut a lot of weight now when you go, like, you fight professionally. I mean, for your last few amateur fights, you were definitely cutting a lot of weight going into your amateur fights as well, right? Yeah,
so again, this is an interesting thing in terms of my first few amateur fights, from memory again. Yeah, no, 100% were same day weigh-ins. So you couldn't really cut substantial amount of weight. And then it was only until, again, I won't like to say indefinitely, but maybe my fifth, no, even that, maybe my sixth, my last amateur fight was maybe a day before weigh-in. Again, I can't remember, we're rewinding a clock, but a lot of my amateur fights were same day weigh-in, which obviously means you can't cut a whole lot of weight because the lack of time to rehydrate. And then it was maybe my last one, and my last couple of fights were day before amateur weigh-ins. But now pretty much universally all amateur fights are, other than the IMAFs, are day before weigh-ins. So, I mean, amateur-wise, I never cut substantial weight, but obviously professionally, this is where I've tried to push the boat out a little bit. I've said it before, I almost want to try and use myself as a guinea pig and, you know, trial and error methods. So when it comes to passing my knowledge on to my fighters, I've got more of a fine-tuned method. You know, I know what to do, what not to do, because I've been there and done it. You know, I've made the mistakes, I've done things right, and I can pass that knowledge on, you know.
It's interesting you start talking about your fighters, like your students. I know you've always been a very dedicated coach. And I know that the way that your brain works is that's effectively half of what you do is you teach, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you strike, and I'm really interested in, I don't know what kind of answer I'm looking for with this, how do you strike that balance between pursuing your professional career as a fighter and training for that, because that's commitment on another level. And not only teaching your recreational, your casual sort of classes, but also preparing people, who fought a couple of weeks ago. So Jack Bainan, Grant Shamar, whoever over the years. How do you strike that balance?
So again, I've thought about this extensively because I've seen and I've heard a lot of podcasts and videos, etc., of fighters saying that you cannot do both. It can be detrimental to your career being both a coach and a fighter. So don't get me wrong, I feel let's just say the UFC comes knocking and they're offering me big money. Maybe then that might be a time where I've got to be a little bit more selfish. I've got to focus on myself a little bit more, and I can afford to, take a bit more time off and focus on my own recovery, etc. But I mean, as for now, I actually feel teaching it has given me so much benefit. It's forced me to break down techniques and make me understand techniques in a more in-depth level. But then it's also forced me to learn and grow myself, right? So when you talk about Jack, Garon and Melissa and Christoph, when all these guys, they've got a hunger for information, and I'm not going to go out there and just give them, the same stuff over and over again. I need to keep teaching them, keep their knowledge and their understanding of MMA growing, and it needs to be specific for their style, right? So it's forced me to, study fights, to watch instructionals, to go out and find different coaches and learn from different coaches and really theorize different ideas and concepts and understandings to pass this knowledge on. So it's like I said, it's actually, I feel, helped my brain and my fight IQ more than anything else, more than me actually training. I feel like coaching has really developed my fight IQ. But it also goes beyond that as well. I was talking about this literally last week to somebody in terms of holding mitts. When I hold pads for people, like, not only do you have like things like calf and shoulder endurance, because I'm on my toes, I'm moving around, and obviously I'm holding the pads up. So not only is it physically helping my endurance, in my opinion, but also reading a fighter as well, right? Like when you mitt somebody, you've got to judge distance and timing, and everybody's got different rhythms. So I've got to get accustomed to somebody else's rhythm, just like you do in a fight. Like if you've got a pad man and they don't understand your rhythm, the pads are going to be pretty terrible. So by holding pads, I've got a good understanding of people's rhythms now. I can pick up people's rhythms very quickly. Not only do I feel like it gives me good endurance in my calves and my shoulders, but it gets rid of any sort of flinch response as well. So I'm used to punches and kicks being thrown towards my head and keeping my eyes open at critical moments to see what's what. So so not only fight IQ wise is training people helped me, but also holding mitts for people I feel like has given me a lot of benefit as well. Like some fighters train let's just say 2 to 4 hours a day, but I'm teaching people for 2 to 4 hours a day, then I'm training for 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, whatever. That's nearly 7 hours there. People might not consider teaching as training, but I mean, I'm reciting techniques in my brain. I'm teaching it to other people. I'm holding pads. I'm moving around as if I'm sparring another individual. I'm getting a lot of work in. I'm not just sitting at home playing Call of Duty. I'm actually studying. I'm planning lessons. I'm executing those lessons. It takes a lot.
I mean, you do sit at home and just play Call of Duty.
On God's day, on a Sunday. Sunday's my Call of Duty day.
And then every other day is Melissa's Love Island day.
Yeah. At the minute, Melissa's dominating the TV with Love Island, so life is not good.
No, I wouldn't want to be in that position. So it all... What's it like? Because I don't think a lot of people have this. What's it like not only living with, but being the coach of and the fiance of a now professional fighter? How does that relationship dynamic work, if you don't mind going into that a bit?
For me, it's never been a problem. I feel like I've always been managed to separate coach and like a fiance girlfriend without too much of a problem. It's definitely been something that Melissa struggled with, and to be fair, I've seen it with bizarrely girls extensively. Like I've had to train my friends' girlfriends on a number of occasions because, and when I say my friends, is in my training partner sort of thing. So they've got the capability to train their girlfriends, but their girlfriends just do not listen to them. You know what I mean? They'll say, "Oh, jab cross," and their girlfriend would instantly argue. You know, it's very strange. So then they've actually had to pay me to train their girlfriend or their wife, whatever, because they can't do it. You know. So I've seen Melissa struggle with that at the beginning. You know, like I said, I'll try and coach her, and she just will not listen, will not respond to me. So much so where I've sort of pushed her towards other coaches, or I have to get her to come to a class. So there's other people in the room, so she can't chat back to me so much. You know what I mean? But especially during lockdown, this is one of the benefits lockdown has had. It's forced her to only train with me. So I think she's had her back against the wall. You know, she's not had the luxuries of the other coaches and the other training partners. So she realises she has to listen to me. And I like to think, without, you know, blowing smoke up my own ass, this is where we've seen Melissa have the most progression, especially in her striking, was this last year. You know, if I watch back at her old fights and her old pad work videos compared to how she's hitting pads now and how obviously her recent performance was, it's night and day difference, and we're talking about a year's space. And I like to think it's because she's actually listening to me, she's responding to me, but then also she's coaching herself as well. So all those things I just talked about in terms of the benefits coaching has on your fight IQ and, like I said, your flinch response, etc. She's discovering those benefits as well by coaching herself. So it's we've managed to finally start to work around these obvious boundaries being in a relationship, but where the problem still lies is when she cuts weight, because she's not her when she's hungry. It's the house is volatile. You know, it's like walking on TNT. You know, walking on glass, whatever you want to refer to it as. You know, it's not a pleasant experience being in a house with a hungry Melissa.
And then she goes outside.
Oh God.
Very different person. Very different person. So then you get really interesting situations like we had. What are we, just 2 weeks and a couple of days removed from everyone's fights in Wolverhampton? You know, I mentioned Jack, I mentioned Garon, obviously Melissa, yourself, all fighting on effectively the same card. 2 shows, but same day, same card. How was that for you as a coach? And also more importantly, I guess, as a fighter, firstly seeing 2 of your best students make their amateur debuts, and then, you know, your fiance, who is also one of your best students, make her pro debut, and then co-main eventing the card at the end of the night. How does that feel? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so I was talking to Raj about this prior to when we got the fight. So we're like 12 weeks out from this event, and we sort of agreed that I wasn't actually going to corner anybody. We sort of agreed that we'd got the coaching team in place and the coaching structure in place where I wouldn't need to be in the corners. But again, I was sitting and just contemplating things, and I thought, well, I'm not going to want to be sitting backstage while my fighters are fighting. You know, I'm going to want to watch the fights. But then if I'm going to watch the fights, I might as well corner them. You know what I mean? That was basically the thought process behind me. So that's how I ended up cornering them. The plan wasn't to corner them, but like a few weeks out, like I said, I contemplated it, and I thought, I'm not gonna just be able to sit back and not do anything. You know, I'm gonna want to be there. So it's going to be more mentally destructive just sitting backwards, or you know, sitting back in the crowd, or not watching them at all, than actually being in the corner. But then also, I mean, just a lot of people think that cornering takes a lot of energy away from you. But again, when we talk about studying, I study and I watch a lot of, in my opinion, experts, some of the best MMA coaches, again, not coaching too much anymore, but your Greg Jackson, your Faraz Zahabi, your Trevor Whitmans. And if you watch these characters in the corner, they're very composed, very calm. Like when you see one of Trevor Whitman's champions win, he's, you know, the whole corner's going absolutely crazy, and Trevor Whitman just sort of stands up and nods. You know, he's very, very composed. And this is something I like to feel I emulate now in the corner, is that calmness, that composure, almost taking emotion out of it to some degree, and you just go in there with a calculated game plan. So being in the corner, I know, doesn't mentally and physically drain me too much. And like I said, I knew that being in the corner was going to be better for me mentally than being backstage. Then all that being said as well, I actually found it to be it was a far better experience. Like a lot of fighters will advocate, the worst thing about fight day is the waiting around. You know, like you get there early, you've got to do your medicals, your rules meeting, all this type of all these things, and then you just got to sit there. You know, you might watch a couple of fights and you're just sitting there. You might go and speak to a few people that have, come and watching your fight, but it's a long waiting game and it's very tedious. You know, it wears on you. But when I actually had stuff to do, I had people's hands to wrap. I did a little bit of pads with Melissa. Obviously, I walked them to the cage. I was in there for the corner. It just it broke up the monotony of fight day, and made things far more fun and made them a little bit quicker. So I actually enjoyed it. Also, to be fair, talking about it, I'd walked to the cage. When I had went into the fight, I'd already walked to the cage 3 times that night. So it also made the walk to the cage just second nature. And I've talked about this before with a few people, in the sense of I've not had an extensive amount of fights, but if we take into consideration all the people I've cornered and the amount of times I've actually walked to the cage and been in the cage and smelt the environment, seen the environment, felt the environment, I'm very much a veteran of the game. I consider this all experience. You know what I mean? You get the experience of the lights, you get the experience of the nerves, of the feel, everything. The crowd. So yeah, when it got to me actually walking to the cage, like I said, it was nothing different because I'd already done it literally 3 times that night.
I understand completely what you mean in terms of get to a venue. As a musician, get to a venue. We call it hurry up and wait. You got to get there. Need to get there by this time. And then you stand around and sit around for hours, not doing much. I understand how the nerves can build up if you don't find something to do, which is, I always make sure if I'm playing a gig, I've got something to do. It's almost so that I don't even think about the gig until the second I walk on stage. Do you think there are any negatives to being distracted though? I mean, obviously you were very successful on the night, but you're a very I know you evaluate a lot when it comes to strategies and preparing and performance and stuff like that. Do you think there are any negatives to that you could foresee?
Yeah, so I feel like don't get me wrong, if we start to get higher level, so let's just say all 4 of us were fighting very tough opponents, let's just say in the UFC, right? And we had specific game plans in place. Because, I mean, nobody had a very specific game plan. Like we sort of had ideas of where we wanted the fight to take place. But because, again, it's all very low level amateur or low level pro, we can't say conclusively how the opponent's going to come out and how the fight's going to take place. So like I said, they were very broad game plans. It was nothing massively specific, myself included. But should there come a time and place when we do have specific game plans and things might be a little bit more mentally exhausted and we might need better preparation in the warm-up, maybe then everyone fighting on the same show might not be the best idea. You know what I mean? Because it will be a little bit more mentally draining. And, myself, I might need to, recite my game plan, a little bit more backstage. But I'll only know when I cross that bridge. Like I said, I'm more than happy to use myself as a guinea pig to trial and error with myself, make the mistakes, just to see, like I said, when I pass my knowledge on, it's through experience. I've learned it myself. I've been there. I've done it. So, yeah, I'm more than happy to make that mistake. I always am. Just
slight tangent. You and I mean, probably, or definitely me more so than you, but grew up watching pro wrestling, right? You're a huge Stone Cold fan, huge Rey Mysterio fan. In pro wrestling, the walkout, the entrance music, as it's called, the entrance is a huge part of the show. It's all theatrics. I feel like the Lions crowd lost their shit, like for everyone that walked out on that Saturday night. You, I believe for the second time in a row now, walked out to The Trooper by Iron Maiden. I'm not saying that you put a lot of thought into that, but what kind of thought process goes into choosing a song like that?
So, I mean, I'm a big Iron Maiden fan. I mean, when I say I'm a big fan, I'm not a huge music fan, but like the extent of my my joy for music, I'm a big Iron Maiden fan. I really like pretty much play any Iron Maiden song. I want to be able to name it, but I'll sure as hell like it. You know, I've never listened to an Iron Maiden song that I haven't liked. So that being said, love Iron Maiden. I like the fact that they're from the UK, so I feel like, you know, I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm not a patriot, you know, in some senses, but I'm a patriot when we look at MMA. You know, I've talked about this before as well, in a sense. Why I've got a lot of respect for, say, Leon Edwards, Darren Till, Jack Shaw, is because they're all training and fighting out of the UK, you know. They're all representing the UK. The UK's coaching, you know, because it's a big thing in the UK where people feel like they have to go to America. They have to train out of America, you know. The UK is not good enough to fight at the highest level. And I feel like, again, Leon Edwards, Darren Till, Jack Shaw, they're proving otherwise, you know what I mean? They're training out of the UK and they're fighting at the highest level. You know, Jack Shaw just out-wrestled an NCAA wrestler, you know what I mean? And he's a wrestler from Wales. Who would have thought this, you know what I mean? Obviously, Leon Edwards, in reality, is on the cusp of the title fight. Darren Till's always in the mix. You know, these guys, like I said, are all training out of the UK. They represent the UK. So when we talk about my music choice, I feel like I want to be on their level in terms of representing the UK. You know, I want to fight and train out of the UK, and I want to represent what the UK's got in terms of talent and coaching. And yeah, my music choice sort of goes along with that because I made them being from the UK. But I mean, yeah, it's just something about the song "The Trooper." I'm always tug and war between "The Trooper" and "Run to the Hills." "Run to the Hills" I just feel like it's maybe a bit too racist. If somebody sees a bold tattooed man come out to "Run to the Hills," I don't know. I feel like people are going to get the racist idea. But "The Trooper," like I said, I like a lot of the lyrics in this song and the beat and the fact that they're from the UK. You know.
I think in a walkout song you need a powerful riff, a good pace, and you need, by the time you get to the cage, you need it to open up, and that's kind of what the chorus does in that song. I think it's the perfect song. I think you should stick with it, to be honest. But, you know, I kind of missed the point of such things. So I'd like to sort of circle around back to these sort of British, UK, English, whatever you want to call it, MMA scene in a second. But just to sort of finish up on this, how you say you didn't really have a game plan going into that fight. Obviously, you kind of go into your sort of, I don't know, flow state when you're in there. Like, so you can't really remember much. But from what you can remember, if anything, what was going through your head as you were chopping that guy's legs apart?
So, I mean, as far as a game plan, I did have a broad game plan. I was very confident he was going to come out and jab me. You know, I'd seen his previous fights. I knew that he was going to have a height advantage, and therefore, if somebody's got a height advantage, they're most likely going to be using their jab to establish this. And he used his jab extensively in his previous fights. It was very good off a bounce, was in and out. So my game plan, in a sense of things, the broad sense of things, was just to counter his jab. You know, I know that if I was to go in there and shut down his jab, a lot of his attacks will be non-existent, and a lot of mine will start to come to light. But I mean, I'm very good at countering somebody's jab. I mean, one of my main sparring partners over the years is my own fighter, Christoph. He's 6'4" heavyweight. You know, I'm very accustomed to having my head pinged off with a jab. You know, so I've had to work my way around defending a jab. So when somebody wants to come into a fight and try and jab me, I'm a very happy man. You know, because within this fight, I show my two of my main attacks, what we call a cross counter and a low kick counter, both off a jab. And yeah, so when my low kick, I mean, from memory now, the very first strike he tried to throw was a jab, and I low kick countered it straight away. And I remember, I don't think you can see it in the video, but he sort of nods to me, and it's like that mutual understanding that he realised, like, oh shit, he's got a hard shin and a hard low kick, and yeah, I mean, from that moment on, I was very, very confident I'd got his number. You know, I was very confident the fight was going to go my way.
I think what I love about that fight is literally every technique in that fight is stuff that you have taught at Lions multiple times over the years. Even there was a peel at one point. There was a clinch, and you did like a shoulder peel. I don't know if you got anything directly off it, but it's stuff like that. You, as you know, people who train at the gym, we could recognise stuff that you did in that fight. Even stuff like, even though you didn't use your hands as much as as the kicks, hence Melissa in the corner shouting, "James, use your hands." You kept that left hand sort of there as a present, as a threat, gauging your distance. On when it hit the ground, a lot of fighters, I don't know, maybe it's a reflection of him as much as it is of you, but a lot of fighters would have struggled to maintain that position that you ended up in. I know that Braulio actually taught a seminar on that particular position a couple of years ago at Lions Gym, Braulio Steamer. Is that a position that you've worked with him, or is that just stuff that you've worked out throughout the years in terms of how to deal with that? Because I see a lot of fighters end up in that position, specifically in the UFC, and they can't hold the guy down, and yet you did. What do you think is the difference there?
So don't get me wrong, I feel like we've definitely, me and Braulio, we've worked this position a lot. I mean, Braulio's got a whole system around that type of pass and the head control that goes along with it. And especially recently, I've been finding a lot of success with this. I call it a BJ Penn pass. BJ Penn used it famously. But like I said, we've done it a lot with Braulio. And I have been finding a lot of success with it. But in terms of my control there, again, I like to think I've got a good ability to control somebody. I've got heavy hips and a low centre of gravity. But I do feel like, in some ways, he was looking for a way out. I didn't feel like there was massive amounts of resistance on his part. Maybe because I'd rocked him with a cross counter. Maybe because his leg was hurt, so he didn't have the capability or the capacity to bridge and use that leg too much. Or maybe he was looking for a way out. Could have been a combination of them all, really. But I didn't feel like there was a huge amount of resistance on his part. But again, it could just be, like I said, maybe it's just down to a superior control. But I'm very confident in that position. You know what I mean? I was very happy to land it in a fight and obviously land some elbows. Being the first time I've actually managed to elbow somebody was a very bizarrely happy moment.
How do you practice that? Do you practice that?
No, I mean, so when we're doing like ground and pound sparring, like in terms of rolling, you might get to a position and let's just say a crucifix and you elbow the floor by somebody's head. That's one way you could practice it. Of course, you can show elbows, but I mean, a punch is just an extension of an elbow to some degree if you think about it in ranges, right? So if you can punch somebody and if you can get close enough, you should really be able to elbow them. But it is tricky to practice. I think a lot of it will be done in the fight. You know what I mean? You'll practice ideas and ways around it while in there. You know what I mean? Just because obviously you can't afford to elbow sparring partners.
So I want to come back round to this. I'm trying to remember the acronym. EMMA, the English MMA Association, is it?
Yeah,
Alliance.
So. Yeah.
Alliance is cooler, but I think it's association. So in the UK at the minute, MMA isn't a recognised sport. Am I right in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And basically at the minute, EMMA are trying to make it a recognised sport to basically improve the safety of the events for fighters and also, in the long run, you're talking about career like fighters, rights and stuff like that. But at the minute, just get it recognised. So do you have any sort of thoughts on that? Obviously, Dan Hardy, who's someone that you're currently training with, is effectively spearheading that. What do you think about all that?
So I'm a massive fan. Obviously, I'm a little bit gutted. I mean, it was around when I was fighting amateur, but it wasn't really a big thing. But seeing what Melissa's done in the IMMAF tournaments, and obviously if the English side of this starts to make tournaments as well, it's only going to benefit the sport, especially in this country. Because there's no two ways about it. If I can choose to have one fight or three fights, of course, unfortunately, depending on the tournament format, you might have three fights within the space of a week or a day, whatever. But I mean, I would always choose to have the 3 fights, especially at an amateur level. I mean, it's a little bit safer because they've got shin guards, and I've always got quality referees. But, I mean, we want experience at an amateur. Win, lose or draw, you want to have the experience. The idea is to get the losses as an amateur and then go to your pro ranks, and ideally remain undefeated and make your money there, right? But amateurs where you learn your craft. And that's where I feel like these tournaments are really, really good at doing. That's why I'm going to push my fighters to always try and participate in the IMMAFs and the English side of things, just because it gives crucial experience, you know.
So yeah, one really interesting thing you talked about is the growth of the sport. The sport is, well, MMA as we know, I guess it's 27 years old now since the start of the UFC. You had other organizations, running no holds barred tournaments. You had your Vale Tudo, you had, your Gracie challenges. Yeah, exactly. You had, that was, basically fights like this, ideas like this going for decades before. And I mean, if you really got down into the nitty gritty of it, like, people would have a scrap throughout time, right? But the UFC obviously put that flag in the ground and said, okay, this is going to be, well, initially maybe not a sport, but this is going to be a thing that people watch. It still struggles to get through to people. Some people, you get a lot of people, sort of casual fans, who might look at it and go, I just think it's either too brutal, or I think, it's too, I don't like the holding, or like when they hit the ground or anything like that. What is it about the sport, both from a spectator side and a competitive side, that you think, not that it's not growing, but that hinders its growth?
I think to some degree it will always be held back down to the grappling. Because punching somebody's head is like a universal language, right? Like, you can have no experience in any sort of combat sport, and if you see somebody punch somebody in the head 10 times and somebody else punch him in the head just once, you sort of know who's won. So obviously boxing, you see a lot of casual fans and they can understand that sort of violence. But when we look at grappling, it's very common, if somebody's uneducated, they will be completely clueless as to who's winning. Fights will end and they don't understand why it's ended. So I think the grappling will always, to some degree, hold the sport back. But then, even saying this, that idea that would suggest that Glory, for example, or any sort of Muay Thai show should be far more, far bigger than what it is as well, right? Because you're just kicking somebody, Again, it's a universal language. People can understand it very easily. So I'm not actually too sure what makes a sport successful. Is it just the historical elements of the boxing? Obviously boxing's a very old sport. It's universally been, the biggest combat sport on the planet. I'm honestly not too sure, but I do feel like with MMA, the grappling's always going to hold things back a little bit. Obviously, there are people like McGregor and stuff that have broke MMA through to a little bit more of the forefront of your casuals. But yeah, grappling's going to hold us back.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts about that, which is why I run it by you. I think it's really sort of interesting. Just thinking about from a brand growth perspective, I think sports growth depends on a few things. Number one, the complexity of the rules. You can look at football, and football is far more popular than rugby because the rules of football are simpler than the laws of rugby. Not saying that rugby is not a popular sport, but football, is easy to understand. You can watch it and go, well, they're kicking the ball that way, it's got to go in the goal. Whereas rugby, it's like, well, why do they have to pass the ball backwards? Why are they scrumming? You can compare MMA to boxing and see the same thing. It's like, well, in boxing, you've got a body shot and you've got a head shot. And it's like, there are different ways that you can achieve that. That's why they call it the sweet science. But, MMA has that and everything else. Then the second thing is ease of access. So you want to join a boxing gym, you need maybe a head guard, some boxing gloves, maybe a groin guard, a mouth guard, and then you're pretty much set. Obviously you can invest in better gear and more different types of gear, but you can practice. Whereas in MMA, you need, kick pads. You don't even need, mitts to hit in boxing. You can hit the gloves, but in MMA you need kick pads. You need, let's say you want to do jiu-jitsu. Well, there's not going to be no gi every day, so you're going to have to buy a gi probably. You're going to need shin pads. You're going to need like all this extra stuff, and you're going to need specific classes for that. So it's harder to get into, and by definition, you want to train under specialists, or at least people who know what they're talking about, which are already rarer. So that's going to be more expensive.
And to be fair, just to butt in, talking about the money, because obviously boxing's a recognised sport, an Olympic sport. It's government funded, right? So a lot of the boxing gyms are paid for by the government. So the classes would be very cheap, maybe £3 a class, just sort of pay the rent of the building. Whereas obviously MMA isn't recognised, isn't government funded, so that will also result in it being just a bit more expensive,
Which I think is where Emma comes in. If it's recognised, there's at least a chance that it can be government funded. I love the fact that Lions are now offering more kids' classes and more women's classes, because it makes it look like a much more inclusive sport and group of sports. I think is the word. You also always need a TV deal. Like, I think the reason Glory's not as big as it possibly could be is because, BAMA and now Bellator are on like BBC or ITV. Glory's not. You need it on free TV basically. Mm-hmm. And obviously the UFC have a deal with BT Sport, and that's great because the pay-per-views are only 20 quid, whereas in America you can pay $100 for a pay-per-view. But there is not only do you in theory need a TV license to watch that, but you also need a TV license to watch that, but you also need you need to buy the pay-per-view as well. I was just really interested. I'm always really interested in seeing how things grow and why things might grow. And I think that point that you brought up about the government investment is a key part to it as well, because clearly there is demand for it. Even in a small place like Coventry, these classes that are being put on, these extra classes are being put on, they fill up. They fill up quickly. Some of the women that fight, or have started training / fighting at Lions, are lethal, and they're getting better a lot, like really quickly, which I think in no small part is to do with your lovely fiance. All the credit in the world for that, but just having those classes available and having a coach available who is a woman, because a lot of women feel like they want to train with women. I'm really interested to see how the sport grows in the next couple of years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, based on that. Lions has been going 11 years. What year number were they at when you got involved?
So I more or less joined literally a couple months after they'd opened, more or less. So Lions Gym opened. They weren't a Gracie Barra Academy. I think they opened and they just had maybe like MMA sort of kickboxing classes on at the minute, with the idea to go to Gracie Barra, but it just hadn't been put through yet. So I was training at like a muck dojo in Coventry. Didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. And I remember when the guys I was training with told me about Gracie Barra. Didn't know what Gracie Barra was. And said there's one in Birmingham. I was like, okay, cool. So I'm researching. I couldn't drive at the time, checking the train timetable. And it turned out, Gracie Barra Birmingham was just by a train station, 5 ways I think it was in Birmingham. I was like, perfect, this is going to be easy. I get to go train with Browley, with Steamer, this dude's, one of the best in the world. And then just while I'm Googling it again, then just luck would have it, there was a Gracie Barra in Coventry. And it was literally around the corner from where I lived. I thought, no way, the stars have aligned. There's a Gracie Barra in Coventry. And I remember walking down just to watch the class. And I seen it was Nathan at the time teaching a class, and there was Mukken and Raj on the mats, and I just remember they were teaching an armbar, I believe it was, and just the technique that was covered in this class was a million times greater than what was being taught to me at the Muck Dojo. I could see that.
You could already tell that.
Yeah, literally. Just the instruction alone, and like I said, I was still clueless to the sport, but I just knew there and then the technique was far greater. I was like, cool, sign me up. Paid my money and turned up to the next class, got absolutely smashed. And I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be, you know, and just never looked back since.
Has there ever been hot take time? Has there ever been time when you've thought about completely? I mean, obviously you can't now because you literally have it tattooed onto your arm, which I think is fucking cool. Almost a rite of passage nowadays. Like if you're a fighter for Lions Gym, you have to have that tattoo, which is a pretty fucking cool tattoo to have. But was there ever a point where you thought, I'm gonna go move over here permanently? Like obviously you train in other places, but was there ever a point where you felt like it wasn't for you being there anymore?
No, I mean, there was once upon a time, you know, I made a few mistakes and me and Raj ended up having a falling out, and I thought that it might get to a point where I'd have to move gyms and move jobs, really, because of our falling out. Like I said, fault of my own. There was friction from another, I won't name him, but another person who worked at the gym at this time as well. But we got past it, and, you know, just the way it is, mine and Raj's relationship has been so much stronger ever since. You know, like I literally see him as an older brother. Like the things he has done for me is, you know, beyond words. Like honestly, I can't thank him enough, and I'm sure he knows that. But I probably don't tell him enough. But that's just like being a dude, right?
Man, you're a jiu-jitsu man.
Exactly. But no, yeah, like I said, apart from that, like one sort of falling out period. Yeah, I've never, I can't even contemplate leaving the gym. You know, I have had a number of different people from a number of different gyms trying to offer me jobs and trying to snag me. I'll always tell Raj, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm sure he's aware, you know, I will never leave the gym, you know, unless a ludicrous offer was to come, let's just say in a paradise, you know, I don't know, some sort of, you know, fancy island where I don't have to deal with anyone's bullshit and I get to just be with me, my dogs, and I don't know, I get paid millions. Maybe I can't.
I guess Melissa too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, of course Melissa. But the dogs first. But yeah, I'll never leave the gym. You know, I'll never have reason to.
Would you coach anywhere else, even on a temporary basis or once a week? Or obviously it would be something, if you were offered, you'd be open with Raj.
No, I'll try and speculate ideas as to when I would coach somewhere else, and again, I can't think of a reason as to why I would, you know. Like money isn't an issue for me, so somebody offering me more money isn't going to entice me. I'm building up fighters at Lions Gym, so somebody offering me fighters isn't going to entice me. Of course, and it's not something I'd be interested in at the minute, just because I don't feel like I'm on that sort of level. Not yet, a few years down the line maybe, but like seminars and stuff and workshops, yes, of course. Like I'm always happy to share knowledge. But as far as like coaching, like on a weekly or regular basis, no.
Was there ever a point, because obviously you were effectively the first guy from the gym to ever, well, to be an MMA fighter. Like there wasn't anyone before you, as far as I'm aware. You know, there might have been jiu-jitsu or kickboxing, Muay Thai practitioners, but you were the guy at the MMA gym who started it, and from then, you know, through doing more coaching, you enticed other people, and you effectively just became the head of the head coach, just because there was no one else. Does that ever cross? I mean, I know you don't like to reflect on stuff like that too much. You just, you know, go through your day, you graft. Do you ever think about that and think about how much value you've added to the gym over the years?
Yes and no. I mean, it's always like a synergistic relationship, right? Like, of course, I've brought value to the gym, but I think the gym's always brought more value to my life. You know what I mean? Like it's literally given me a job, it's given me a family, it's given me a purpose. So I will always be indebted to the gym. Like I've always said it, you know, the gym is bigger than everybody, you know. Like if I felt like I wasn't doing the gym justice, I like to think I would take a step back, you know. Like as bad as it sounds, I've got old coaches pretty much sacked because I didn't feel like they were and they were friends, you know, but I just didn't feel like they were they were doing the gym justice. You know, I feel like I said, the gym is bigger than everyone. Like the purpose of the gym and the goals of the gym outweigh everything. You know, the gym is everything, and the value it brings to people's lives, even if it's just Tom, Dick and Harry down the street. You know what I mean? Like we've had, you know, I guarantee you the gym has saved people's lives mentally and physically. You know, people have moved from different cities to train in the gym, or they've come over here from university and they've chose to stay in the city, and a lot of that will be down to the gym. You know, so of course it's you know, been there for fighters, but even for general population, like the gym is bigger than any single person. You know, so I would never, you know, I don't know, think of too much of myself and the value I bring to the gym. Yeah, just because of what the gym has done for me and everyone else.
But I mean, are you ever proud? Do you ever think of it?
To be fair, this sort of goes back to I said to a few people like after my fight, you know, like people are like, are you happy? And no, I'm not happy, not until I reach my goals, you know. So I think my first part of happiness, just on my fighting, like going off a tangent, but it will bounce back. Like just when we look at my fighting career, probably my first moment of happiness, I think, is when I win my first Cage Warriors fight. And then when I win a Cage Warriors belt, like these are milestones in my career. And then obviously maybe we're looking at UFC or bigger, you know, one championship, Bellator for you know, titles, etc. These would be like my milestones of happiness. And with the gym, until, I don't know, maybe I've got a fighter in the UFC, or I don't know, I'll have to reach an important milestone in the gym's, I don't know, life, for me to maybe sit back and admire my work as such. But until the goals have been achieved, yeah, I'm not gonna stop and smell the roses just yet, you know.
I respect that. I definitely respect that. Although, you know, not far off having a few fighters in some good organisations.
I'm very confident, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Going back to the pro wrestling, one Bellator, UFC. Does the Triple Crown or Grand Slam, does that ever cross your mind?
No, I feel like this
because no one's held every belt yet.
Yeah,
people have held 2, but not all 3.
I feel like it'll be unattainable for some just for political reasons. You know, and you've got to sort of know where your limit is physically. Look, of course, I've got physical gifts beyond that of some people, but look, I'm a realist. Maybe I'm too much of a realist. I know that I'm not on a physical capacity level of, let's say, George St. Pierre. You know what I mean? So, you know, maybe one's achievable, but yeah, 3 for me. No, I'm not that special of an athlete. You know, I'm fully aware of this. You know, I'll go in there and fight any fucker. Don't get me wrong, but I know where my line's drawn. You know.
So 2 will do.
Yeah.
So who are your coaches at the minute then?
So I always bounce around. I mean, long-term coaches, and I'll always fall back to him just because I feel like he understands me and I understand his system beyond that of anyone else, would always be Jimmy. You know, Jimmy's, I feel like had the biggest impact on my progress from day one than any other coach has. You know, literally my coaching style and my coaching ability and my fighting ability is probably all will point back to Jimmy, you know. But I mean, it'll be a combination of Jimmy, Andre, Tyrone, Braulio, you know, even Raj, you know, trains with Braulio far more than me at the minute, and Raj will bring back valuable information from what he does with Braulio. I'm trying to think off the top of my head anybody else, and it's probably that at the minute, yeah, from memory. But like I said, I'll always go, you know, I'll train with a coach for a couple months, just sort of pick their brain. You know, I'm like I think me and Melissa joked about it, I'm like a leech. I'm like an information leech. I go and like leech, you know, just go and parasite some information from people and then leave them. You know, I get what I want, and then I'm gone. And unless I feel like they bring long-term benefit to me.
Do you think you can remember every coach that you've ever had?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. Everyone I've at least managed to, even my poor coaches, the coaches that probably aren't as good as, again, like for me, like I use Jimmy as a reference. You know, Jimmy and Braulio maybe as references of like the epitome of coaching that I've had. People that probably aren't as good as those two, they've at least given me one bit of information that has been worthwhile. Like sometimes I think back at it, and you know, some coaches have had hundreds and thousands of pounds and obviously hours of my time. But it's always, as long as I get one snippet, might just be a little bit of information. As long as I've got one little bit of information from them, it's money and hours well spent.
Yeah, I get that for sure. I feel like having, I mean, whether it's been over a long term or just 1 or 2 sessions, I've had a lot of different people coach me, and over the last 5 years, I was thinking about this the other day. I wrote down a list of all those names, and I can remember each and every one, and I can put at least one thing that I've learned from them to that name. Definitely, they add a lot of value. And even if maybe it's not even a technique or a health tip or whatever it is, you learn a lot about yourself and your limits and how you learn and what suits your body. Whether it's jiu-jitsu or striking or cardio or strength or whatever it is, you learn a lot about yourself from studying under other coaches. And I think one of the coolest things was I was very early on at Lions, really focusing. I fell in love with jiu-jitsu first and foremost, and I think it was only your boxing class. It was only because you were coaching boxing and I got along with you in terms of jiu-jitsu that I'd started any striking at all. But basically, I said, "Would you mind if I went and trained at this gym and this gym?" And you said no. You encourage people to go and seek other coaches and other means of learning. What do you think? Do you think that was an instilled belief? Because it's not a traditional martial arts belief. That doesn't exist in like old school gyms. It's like you're with the gym or you're not with the gym. You don't go and train with other organizations. You don't go train with other schools. But you've never said that. Like, I think there's maybe an implicit loyalty that people have to Lions anyway. And so with that, it doesn't even need to be said. Like, people go and train where they feel they need to go and train.
I mean, yeah. Has it been something that's been instilled from me? I think it's just being, a logical thinker. You just understand the value that other coaches bring to a person, right? Like, I think it's important to always have like a foundation, a base, and somebody to come back to. Like there's somebody that understands you and you understand them, and that will always be, like I said, your foundational coach, your head coach, whatever you want to refer to them as. But then to go out and learn from different ideas. I mean, because everyone's got different set of eyes, right? Like, let's just say, one dude might find a certain girl attractive, another dude might find a fucking other girl attractive. Same thing with techniques, right? Some people might, gear towards certain techniques, some people others. Same with coaches. Coaches are typically only going to coach, especially a super high level, as to what they're good at or what they're good at coaching. So every coach is going to bring different value to a person, and people are going to respond differently from different coaches. So I think just being a logical thinker, you understand this kind of very easily. I mean, where I have got butthurt a few times when some of my guys have gone to gyms where I don't feel give any value. Like a few guys before have gone to a gym where I feel it's shit. And that angers me to some degree, just because I feel like they're wasting time or they might learn bad habits. But as long as somebody goes to a good gym and a good coach and somebody that I do feel like is going to bring value to them, then I'm very happy. I think this is really important.
I just want to kind of throw this in there, just because you're a student of the game. Just out of nowhere, Jean-Jacques Machado. You done any study towards Jean-Jacques at all?
No, not anything substantial. Obviously, I know the crux of why he was successful with the no-gi, and I like the idea of it. But I've not studied him extensively to where I'll be able to give any sort of, decent information about him or any decent ideas. But obviously, I understand about his whole disability as such with his hand, and is why he had to use underhooks. And I think that's a very interesting story. Do
you think that's feasible in the gi? Do you think Do you think that's a feasible thing to do in the gi, even for an able-bodied person to just ignore the grips completely?
I mean, it's definitely something I feel like I did, again, being a logical thinker when I was learning the gi. I think I've said this to my MMA fighters anyway, again, go quickly off a tangent. If you've got the ability, for example, of choosing a gi or a no-gi class, You know what I mean? So let's just say you've got a gi class at 7 p.m. or a no gi class at 7 p.m. I would always say, if you're an MMA fighter, of course, the no gi class makes more logical sense. You know, when I was first training, I never had this choice. It was just gi.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd have to do gi. You know, if it's the choice of doing gi or nothing, well, you'd be an idiot to do nothing, right?
For
So
sure.
I would do gi, but I would try my hardest to not touch the gi. Just because I understood, being illogical, thinking that you're not going to have a gi when you fight somebody in MMA, so why am I going to get used to gi chokes, for example, when it's literally going to have no benefit to some degree? So yeah, I would encourage a lot of MMA guys to sort of ditch grabbing the gi. That being said, I do think there's a time and place for it. Normally, for example, where I feel like it benefits, you know, like people that spaz out a lot. You know, people that just roid out of things and all this type of, you know, those types of bad habits that could be built through just no-gi sparring. Sometimes the gi can drill it out of you because, you know, if somebody grabs your gi, you've got to think
Mickey
about
Gall
it.
said this.
What's that?
Mickey Gall, you know Mickey Gall?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, he's not had the best of luck in his last few fights, but he said this. But he basically said he trains in the gi not because of the grips, but because he believes that it makes his no-gi a lot tighter, but also his transitions a lot better, like a lot more technical, which I find is a really interesting perspective. But also, having been looking at Jean-Jacques recently, watching him compete in the gi, it's really interesting how he was still able to do what he did and be as successful as he was, even without the grips. You know, and as you say, I mean, luckily with things opening up past lockdown now, we don't have to choose between gi and no gi, but, you know, for the last, you know, few months, that's been the case. It's gone back to old school. You either do gi or you do nothing, like on some nights. And, you know, there is part of me that I do like the gi to an extent, but also I like the speed of no gi. But yeah, really trying to implement that and not use the grips. Sometimes it's just a habit. Like you see a collar there, you grab a collar, but like, you know, I find that a really interesting thing that I was studying. I was just interested to get your sort of thoughts on that.
No, I do think it's an interesting approach. To be fair, talking back about this, about me never grabbing a gi, I did get into a habit of, I was a very good guard passer as a white belt, but I would only have one guard pass, it would be a Toriander pass.
Yeah.
So I'd grab the gi pants and just Toriander. And then I realised this was a massive hole in my game when it transitioned to MMA, because unless the dude had really long leg hair, I ain't going to have nothing to grab, you know, so... yeah, that was again an important moment of realization that you really shouldn't just rely on the gi, you know. But again, like we already specified, it can have benefit, you know. But I think it's a very specific benefit, you know. It's not for everybody to benefit from, but for more of the people that just roid out of things, spaz out of things, that's where the gi might have a lot of value. And
you said on a recent podcast that you post MMA career intend to focus on your jiu-jitsu and specifically the gi more. Is that the case? Is that...
Yeah, so this is always the plan. You see a lot of MMA guys tend to go this route, you know. They tend to do their MMA career, get all the head trauma, you know, get a cauliflower brain, and then obviously when you get past a certain age, you don't really want to be taking too much head trauma. So jiu-jitsu tends to be the good alternative because you want to stay competitive, you want to keep learning martial arts. That's why we're all here, right? We all enjoy martial arts. And the gi just tends to be a slower game, so a little bit more suited for older people. Obviously, you don't receive head trauma. So just like, again, just thinking, you're only going to know when you actually get there for sure, but just thinking of a clear path of my career that seems to be a logical way, a logical place I'm going to end up in. And that was when I wanted to have my black belt, right? I think this is where I talked about it in the podcast was, you know, I wanted to not get a black belt while I was in MMA because I knew that I couldn't really pay attention to the gi. And then once I retire from MMA and focus on the gi a little bit more, which tends to be the path that a lot of MMA fighters go down, that's when I'd like to have my black belt, when I could, you know, say conclusively I've trained a lot of gi, etc. But I mean, yeah, the black belt just sort of got given to me, you know.
It was cool. It was a cool moment. Same night, you know, Braulio, but it was you gave me my blue belt, right? That you got announced that you were getting your black belt. I'm much like you. Like there is a certain pride in terms of like how long I've been somewhere that comes with walking around, you know, even with all the other like blue belts and purple belts and stuff at the gym, it's nice seeing people there and going, they've been here with me for this long, and so seeing that level grow is cool. But in terms of the actual, like, you get a belt if you've been here this long, or you get a belt if you're this good, or you get this is what this belt means, and if you get a black belt, you're amazing. Like, I'm much like you. I don't actually put a lot of sort of stead into that. To me, it's a milestone in the sense of how dedicated you are. But to you, I know you also don't give out belts for free. You hate the idea of, like, the dumbing down, the watering down of the belt system, right? So what do you think each belt represents to you? What do you want each in gi specifically? Although I don't know if you think that no gi contributes towards you giving a belt in the gi. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that as well. What do you think each belt should be able to do?
Yeah, so I mean, this is something I thought about extensively as well. Even when I got my own black belt, and I think I talked about it to Raj, because I expressed my own views of sort of not wanting a black belt when I got it, and then me and Raj talked about it and talked to Braulio, and sort of conclusion I've drawn is about everyone's on their own journey, right? So, for example, I am now black belt. Of course, there's degrees on your black belt, etc. But so let's just say somebody down the street might see me with a black belt around my waist. Let's say they'll see Braulio with a black belt around his waist and goes, they're the same level. You know what I mean? Which
there's black belts and there's black belts.
That's what I mean. It's obviously incorrect. So I've talked about this before, like how I would destroy just some random dude on the street in jiu-jitsu is how Braulio destroys me. Like, this is, you know what I mean? Like, it's unbelievable how good Braulio is, right? But we've got the same coloured belt around our waist. And so a lot of people try and justify belts like, he's a blue belt and he taps him out, so he's there for a blue belt. And I just don't think that math works, because Braulio and beyond that, let's say Hodger and whatever, these high-level black belts are going to tap out most other black belts, so therefore nobody deserves a black belt. You understand? It's just that type of understanding of the belt system is definitely incorrect. So then what does a belt mean? And I think it is somebody's specific journey, right? So you do get some people that I sort of refer to as movement retarded, that they're
I wonder who he's thinking of.
like people that just they just don't really grasp techniques very well, no matter how long. Like, some people, it might take 10 years for them to start to understand the sport, and then it might click and they're very, very good, right? Or some people, they just never understand it, but they're on their own specific journey. So if you compare them to where they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, they're so much better, and they've remained dedicated, and they've represented the sport well, or maybe they've brought value to the sport. So what Braulio talks specifically about me is, how unfortunately with Lions Gym we lost 2 jiu-jitsu coaches, and it was basically, it fell onto me. It was either Lions Gym had no jiu-jitsu academy, as in it was gone, or I had to take the lead, right? So it just sort of fell onto my lap that I was the jiu-jitsu coach, and I ended up building up, jiu-jitsu champions and MMA fighters, etc. And this is one of the things that Braulio really wanted to give me a black belt for, is for what value I'd brought to the sport, and specifically jiu-jitsu and Gracie Barra. And that was, again, when I started to realise that it goes beyond just how good you are. It's your specific journey of how you've progressed, how you've represented yourself, the sport, how dedicated you are, the value you brought to the sport. Have you opened a jiu-jitsu club? Have you, taught jiu-jitsu? Have you spread, the ideas of jiu-jitsu around the world? So, yeah, I wouldn't like to say there's a specific number of techniques you need to know, or you need to be a specific level. You need to tap him out, you need to tap her out, whatever. I feel like it is just down to the individual, and you can't approach every belt and every person the same way. You know what I mean? It is literally, you just sort of, you just sort of know, you just sort of know when somebody deserves their belt or not. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why, to be fair, I really love the jiu-jitsu idea of the belt system. I definitely feel like there's credit to like your traditional grading methods for like kids. I think, again, I've talked to Raj about this in reference to our kids' academy. Like, I think kids are a little bit different, and when you give them a structure, like this is blue belt, this is whatever, orange belt, this is yellow belt, etc. You need to know these techniques. I think that there's a lot of credit to there with the kids, and they do gradings. It is a little bit more formal. The parents love it, the kids love it. I definitely feel like there's some credibility there. But when we're looking at adults are not the same as kids. I think the jiu-jitsu way of grading is definitely the best. You know,
it's really interesting. I don't want to stay on this for too long because, again, I don't hold as much value in belts as a lot of people. I'm much from your school of thought in that sense. You're on is grappling with physio? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. You're on what's his name?
Paul.
You're on Paul's podcast. I really like Paul. He's a really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with him. He was talking to you, and I know this was a year, 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, a long time ago. He was talking to you about, and he may have changed his mind about how for some people the belt can be a motivating factor to get them into the gym. The belt, it can be something to aim towards, and then you get it and you feel like you've accomplished something. Now, I do agree, when you get it, there is a sense of accomplishment, because you feel like your efforts and your skill and your dedication is being recognized. I disagree with it as being a motivating factor. Maybe between white and blue, because you don't know until you get blue what it feels like to be, maybe with a stripe, but you don't know what it's like to be actually recognized. Like no one. I think the stripes thing, especially the way the Lions do it, is important because 2 stripes you can go to advanced class. 3 stripes you're nearly there. 4 stripes it's like, oh, you're a good white belt, and then you get your blue, and it's like you're recognized. But the moment I got my blue belt, I didn't give a shit about getting the next belt because, well, firstly, purple belt for me specifically, I know that's 3, 4, 5 years away. That's a stupid goal. That's a stupid motivating factor, and that's not always going to be there. And then it can easily get into your head, just like, if that's all you're going to the gym for, I can take today off. Like, they're not going to notice me for an hour missing. To me, I was saying this to Adam when I got in, and I was tying my belt on, and he was tying his black belt on. I almost have to defend the belt. Like, I'm like, shit, I've been trusted with this now. Like, no, but there is an element of pride with it.
Yeah, you got a crosshair on your back,
Yeah, yeah, it's like every fucking... And bear in mind that some of my friends, and including Jack for a couple of months, were still white belts. Jack, got his a couple of months later. But it's like now all of a sudden every single white belt that you couldn't beat before want to fucking kill you. I find that very motivating to get better because it's like, even though I'm not a dick when I roll, unless I'm rolling with Alicia or Melissa. I also don't want people to beat me on the mat unless I know that I'm specifically trying a new technique and that's all I'm going to be working with, which is fine. If I'm just free rolling and I just want to sort of mini competition, I don't want to get beat on the mat. But I don't want to get beaten by someone worse than me. But at the same time, I'm looking at, purple belts. Take Melissa, for example, and it's like, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, she's probably going to tap me, but I'm not going to let her if I can, So I don't give that much of a shit about the belts above me. But in terms of my training, even though it's not a knock on my ego if a white belt taps me, that's the motivation while I'm rolling. You know what I mean?
No, definitely.
Can you understand that too?
Yeah, because I found this a lot when I got my black belt, obviously, is as soon as you get your black belt, everybody wants to be the guy in the gym that has tapped out a black belt. You know what I mean? Or has tapped out their coach. So, of course, no roll then becomes an easy roll, which is a beautiful... Look, everyone's going to have some sort of an ego, but I feel like a lot of my ego got lost. I don't think I've told this story before on podcast, but I've told it to many people, especially a lot of my students. I was a blue belt, and I got choked completely unconscious by a white belt. So not even a white belt, somebody who maybe only trained a couple of months. Was a student at Coventry University or Warwick University. I remember I got a rear naked choke on me, and I remember it was in deep, but I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to tap to a white belt. This doesn't happen. White belts don't tap out blue belts, especially because I was like the main guy in the gym. I was the protege, and next thing you know, I'm waking up. And what was worse than tapping to a white belt was being completely choked and conscious by a white belt. And that was when I sort of realised, who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? It is what it is. So of course, you got some sort of ego. You don't want to lose to somebody who's a lower level than you to some degree, but it also doesn't really matter. But no, it definitely is a motivating factor because everyone's got a little bit of an ego, right? You know, as soon as they got your black belt, your blue belt, your purple belt, you don't want to lose to anybody below you. And there are going to be some people that, you know, white belts, blue belts, purple belts, whatever, whoever's below you, that are training like monsters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That are training like absolute monsters, and they're gunning for you. You know, some of them might be gunning for you or gunning for competitions, but they're on your tail. You know what I mean? You've got to keep up with them, otherwise you're just going to sink. You know what I mean? So it's no, I agree.
I get super excited when I see people who've just come to the gym and they're clearly either talented or they've trained before but not officially, and you know, you roll with them and it's like they're probably above what their belt says they are.
Mm-hmm.
And even if maybe they're not quite there yet and there's like holes in the game that you can exploit, I get super excited when I see that, especially when it's someone your own size, because it's like, I'm going to train with you for years and this is going to be back and forth and we're going to make each other better, even if they're a new person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, Cooksey was like that for me. You know, Mikey came in at the same time as me. He was like that. As soon as Jack and I sort of settled down in terms of uni and he came back, Jack and I like started rolling together and just got like that. You know, Jordan, new kid Jordan, I love rolling with him.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's very good, and he shouldn't be, but he is. And you know, to me, I look at that as like, while we're rolling, I'm not gonna let this kid tap me. As soon as like, I don't think he has tapped me, but if he, as soon as he taps me, I'm not gonna be like, damn, that motherfucker tapped me. Like, no, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, let's go again. You know, I love that. I genuinely love that sort of spirit. I don't understand when people get upset if they get tapped by a lower belt, because, you know, as we said before, there's black belts and there's black belts, and you know, there's stories of, I don't know if it was Nate or Nick Diaz when they were a purple belt tapping black belts, and it's just like, that's not what it's supposed to mean. But at the same time, during the roll, it gives me motivation, because it's like, I've been trusted with this, you know. And also, I think part of it is, when I came in, the blue belts were Wilson and Jake, and those are some fucking, you know, shoes to fill. Have you been keeping up with The Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah, I think I'm maybe on episode 4, so I might be 1 or 2 episodes behind, but I have been watching it. Yes.
What do you think? I mean, I know that you used to be a fan of The Ultimate Fighter, especially the UK season.
I mean, look, when we watch The Ultimate Fighter, I mean, we look for 2 things, really. Obviously, you're looking for your up-and-coming talent, of course, your prospects, and it's always interesting to see how they are outside of the fight. You know what I mean? To see them in like a home environment as such, and see how their personalities are. But also, you want to see a little bit of drama. That's why there's a reality TV sort of aspect to it. And as soon as I saw the 2 coaches, I was a little bit deflated, because I think there was talk of like Colby Covington and Masvidal, and you already know.
At one point it was Izzy and what's his name?
Maybe Paul Acosta.
Yeah.
And instantly, like, this is going to be a great season, because there is like genuine hatred and there's a little bit of smack talk. Again, you want that element of reality TV, you know. But yeah, so I just, Volkanovski and Ortega, neither of them have been known for like having massive personalities and having a bit of drama there. So I wasn't too hyped for this season, and so far none of the fights have been spectacular. There's been nothing really, you know, nothing to shout home about. Still to this day, it was the first season I ever watched, but the UK versus USA season is my favourite season.
That was Dre's season.
Exactly. It's the first thing I ever watched of MMA properly, and maybe this is it. Maybe there's a bit of nostalgia there, but I just loved the team camaraderie that we've seen with the UK guys, and the fact that the UK come in and smash USA and nobody expected it. The USA guys didn't expect it. Obviously, you got Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson. They had genuine hatred to each other. And Michael Bisping's just a character in himself. And I still feel like this is one of the best seasons. Don't get me wrong, season 1, of course, as well. Like, you know, that would always be up there as one of the greatest. And I think Nate Diaz's season was pretty spectacular as well, from memory, because they actually had a street fight in the house. That was always good fun. But yeah, at the minute, this this season, I'm not too hyped about.
I'm a fan of the Julian Lane season.
Yes.
I've told you that story a million times.
He's doing well in BKB now as well.
He is,
doing surprisingly well.
I don't keep up with him. I think I've still got him on Facebook. I'm not sure. I met him in the pub at an open mic one time, and I sang the "There's Only One Conor McGregor" song, and he and his mate were telling us all about how they train with Thug Rose. You know Rose Namajunas? I'm like, yeah, I know Rose Namajunas. Oh, she's our girl. We train with her. And they're in town for some bare knuckle boxing thing. And I invited them to my house to watch. I think Rose was competing, but it might have been Bisping GSP. I'm not sure. But I invited them to my house to watch it on the Saturday night. This was on the Thursday that I met them. I went into the gym on Friday. I showed the picture that I'd taken with the two guys, including Julian Lane, to you. And you were like, you cannot let that person in your house.
Let me back, bro.
Yeah, let me back, bro. I will let you back. I do let you back, bro. Let me back again, bro. That was a weird night. That was in the town cry. Like, what the fuck? That's just weird. Were you I mean, obviously you would have met Dre after the Ultimate Fighter. Were you a bit starstruck at all? Did you recognise?
Definitely. Yeah. That was it was very. I've talked about this before. It's just how again.
Andre Winner, this is, by the way.
Yes, it was almost. I don't know. Maybe it's cliche. It was almost like meant to be, right? The first ever, experience. Like I said, I'd seen little clips of like Cage Rage. I think, like on the internet, but nothing substantial. Not like a full MMA fight. Just little clips, little highlights, and pictures of MMA fighters. But the first actual MMA I watched was UK versus USA, and it just happened to be Andre's season. And then the fact that he's been such a substantial part of my MMA career is, I don't know, it's still bananas to this day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's cool. It's cool, especially the way that you talk about Andre. Like
I've said it before, Andre is the nicest guy I've ever met, bar mucking. Like literally. Andre is the shirt off your back cup. He was viral on Facebook at one point. I don't know if you ever knew. Like somebody took a picture of him behind. He apparently like dropped all his bags and helped like an old lady across the road. And then somebody took like a picture, like it was on like Spotted Leicester years ago. Like, just seen this really nice guy help an old lady across a busy road. Just want to give a shout out. Then all the comments like, this is Andre Winner. This is a UFC fighter. It just goes to show that cage fighters are really nice. Like, and on several times, like I remember once. I didn't have any sliders and I was going to walk to the cage barefoot, and Andre took his trainers off, gave me his trainers. I remember another time, being an amateur, I didn't know that you couldn't have pockets on your fucking fight shorts. I didn't have any fight shorts. He took his shorts off, gave me his shorts. He's just such a nice guy. It's honestly like I can't even put to words how nice he is. He's a genuine heart of gold.
Yeah, it's cool that he's coming back. He's this week, right? Mm-hmm. He's coming back this week. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to seeing him. I don't know him as well as Jimmy, but I've always enjoyed training with him. He's got a very interesting style especially when he teaches wrestling. Long warm-ups, and then it's just playful. It's all playful after that. Yeah. If you can get through the warm-up, you've got a really good session, to go. And I remember feeling, because at the time, last time I trained with him, I was actually in some good shape. I remember feeling like the warm-up didn't actually last that long, and I was like, I've won. Like everyone else is like gassed, and I'm like doing super well. I love the way he teaches as well. And I just like having him around. It was good to see him on the Saturday night when you guys fought. I will say on that Cage Rage note, Cage Rage used to be showed on a network. I believe it was called the Fight Network. It was on Sky. It was like, what was Sky Sports, like 4 something, so it would have been channel like 412. And the Fight Network also showed TNA Wrestling, TNA Impact, and every time Impact would finish, fucking this shitty, like what I thought was just bad pro wrestling, like cage shit was on, and I'm just like, why aren't they throwing each other into the cage? They're just punching each other. I'd like to go back and watch some of that, because I mean I probably saw Andre like without knowing it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the greats in like UK MMA history would have fought on Cage Rage.
They folded, right? Do you know when they folded?
I don't know if they actually folded. I think they ended up changing to.
You're gonna say Bama now.
No, yeah, there was. It was definitely another promotion. I think it ended up just sort of organically changing names or changing promoter or something. They probably did some dodgy stuff. That's normally what fight shows do, you know, cleaning up their taxes or avoiding taxes. God knows what they did, but I'm very certain it might still be around today, just under a different name. But don't quote me on that. I think it is.
In January, you did a podcast. Who was it with? Do you remember?
This year?
Yes.
Combat Thoughts?
Combat Thoughts.
Yes. Yeah.
You were talking about breaking down Jose Aldo.
Mm-hmm.
Have you finished your breaking down of Jose Aldo?
So what this...
Got any hot takes?
What this taught me is I'm terrible with technology, and any sort of editing process, it takes me about 100 years just to get about 30 seconds of editing. So I quickly gave up any sort of idea of doing an actual like YouTube breakdown. I mean, I've got all the notes. I've got a lot of like couple of second snippets of Jose Aldo's main techniques, but I just couldn't put it on a piece of on a computer. I mean, first problem, I don't actually have a computer, so I'm trying to do it all on my phone, and then B, I'm borderline retarded when it comes to technology. You know, me and technology don't go well. This is why I'm blessed to have Russell as my brother, because he's my technical advisor. And I just
Who is not here, by the way? I messaged him about doing this, and like he seemed super keen when I first messaged him, and then I was like, yeah, we're looking at doing it on this day, and he just didn't message back.
He's not known for early mornings. I won't deny this.
Initially, it wasn't going to be an early morning.
I do like my mornings. I feel like I function better in the mornings. I mean, I don't like it when I wake up.
You always said you're not a morning person, though.
I'm borderline suicidal, you know. I normally sit at the end of the bed, contemplating life, like, what is the point of this? I think I'm just going to sit around and do nothing, you know, maybe sit on benefits and just mooch about. But then,
hey, I did it for a number of years. Fuck it, it's great. The depression, you know, isn't great, but the free money is.
But yeah, then I'd only get up out of bed, get some coffee, and then I'm sat and I'm good to go. But well, back to Jose Aldo. I would say, and it's why, I mean, I'm inherently had a good low kick counter and a good cross counter. Just organically I went this way, it was when I was training actually in Ronin in Birmingham, and it was for some reason I'd always got a fantastic low kick. I just didn't throw it a lot in sparring, and I'm not too sure why. Just stopped it almost, and maybe because it almost feels like a cheat, you know, in Street Fighter or Tekken or whatever, you crouch down and just low kick people. Maybe it just felt like it was too easy, you know what I mean? Maybe that's why I stopped. I don't know. But I remember Silk, the head coach at Ronin MMA in Birmingham, was like, dude, like, low kick more. Like, you want to be like Jose Aldo. And then that was why I went back and watched every single Jose Aldo fight, and then realised that, to some degree, my style is similar to Jose Aldo in the sense that I feel Jose Aldo's style is built upon his fantastic cross counter, which is basically a right-hand counter over somebody's jab, and a fantastic low kick.
Slip the jab.
Yeah, so like an inside slip of a jab and you throw a right hand over the top. And why these two techniques work so well together is they look very similar. So when Jose Aldo takes his head off the center line, he takes what we call an anchor step with his left foot. You don't know if he's going to kick you in the leg or punch you in his head or punch you in the head. And a lot of it is built off this. So he shuts down a lot of your offense with a right hand or a low kick, and ends up freezing a lot of people. Hence why his fights end up quite slow, because then people are a little bit more intimidated to throw back at him, because they might end up cross-countered or low-kick countered. And then this is where a lot of his fakes are built upon, his charging low kicks, so on and so forth. A lot of it is basically built off his fantastic cross-counter and his low kick, you know.
That's cool. Yeah. I assume you got like loads more notes.
Oh man, yeah. I've got like about 3 backwards and forwards A4 pages. And to be fair, this is only, so I watched all his fights, and then I went back to then do notes on all his fights. So I think I only got to a couple of his first UFC fights on actual written notes. Before, like I said, I tried to put it on an actual computer or like an editing software, and it just didn't work. But I've got lots of little snippets, like I said, of Jose Aldo's techniques, and he is still to this day probably one of my favorite fighters.
Do you do that process specifically with a lot of fighters? And if not, would you do it again?
Yeah, so I've said that, I was saying this before to somebody in class. I think he was asking like, how do you improve? And I go through phases of enjoying different fighters, right? So I'll almost try and imitate a fighter when I spar, and I'll do this for a number of months, and then I'll just move on, you know. So I end up just like really loving a fighter. So for my last fight, it was Jose Aldo. Prior to that, Cain Velasquez. Went back and watched all of Cain Velasquez's fights, and I really enjoyed his pressure-based style and his ability to change his boxing to shot, you know, and he'll abandon a takedown and strike as well. So I'll go through phases of watching fighters and really trying to understand them and break them down, and I'll almost try and implement it myself. And then, just move on. When I get bored, carry on.
Who was it that threw the jab to the thigh?
Benson Henderson.
That's something I like to throw in.
Yes, I think this is... Benson Henderson was way ahead of his time, and people don't give him credit for it. He was the first man to throw, again, from memory, calf kicks, you know, jabs to the thigh. He was very, very creative. He's got a fantastic fight IQ. He comes from a very good gym that people underrate as well. Fight Lab, I believe, or MMA Lab. There's a lot of good coaches. One of the coaches that I watch extensively, a guy called, I'm probably going to fuck his second name, but Randy Stanky, and I feel like he's an underrated coach. Like, everyone talks about, you know, your Farazes, etc., but I think like a Randy Stanky, if you were to give him, I mean, a coach and fighter relationship, it's like, again, it's a moment where the stars align, right? So when you look at a Customato and a Tyson, Customato was only going to make a Tyson if he found a Tyson. You know what I mean? Like, he was a fantastic coach, don't get me wrong, but he was the world's best coach to a Tyson. He needed that star alignment of Tyson, like Faraz Zahabi and GSP. Faraz Zahabi was only going to make a GSP if you'd met a GSP. You know, if you're looking at Kavanaugh and McGregor, etc. So I feel like if you find the stars align with this Randy Stanky, he will be another MMA great coach, but it's only when the stars align.
So, obviously, this hasn't... I suppose it has with GSP, but, you know, I wasn't going to bring it up. Danaher, you know, I know you listen to a lot of what his podcasts and what he talks about and how he thinks. In jiu-jitsu specifically, and, it, you know, I have a strong feeling it's going to transfer over to MMA as well in the long run. Danaher has developed systems where people want to go train with him so much that everyone who trains with him at least gets better, but then also he has a group of people that he's found, that he's gathered, who are, for sake of argument, the best in the world at the sport, under one roof. Now, there are MMA gyms that do that. American Top Team in, you know, I believe it's in Jacksonville, is in Florida.
Yes.
You know, there's an example of that. And, you know, old school, if you're talking, you know, 20 years ago or whatever, Lion's Den was... was it Lion's Den in
Lion's Den with Ken Shamrock?
Ken Shamrock, that's it.
And then there was, I forget the name, but you had Matt Hughes and all them lot as well.
Yeah, Frank Shamrock as well for a while.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, there was a number of different. There was probably about three from memory, like Lion's Den, Matt Hughes' facility. Then there was maybe another one, like three at the time that were big gyms.
And now you have, you know, Team Alpha Male's you know, reasonable example of that. But you know, Dana has basically collected a bunch of jiu-jitsu fighters, well, Nogi specific grapplers, and you know, he's made them like top of the food chain no matter who they go against. You know, okay, maybe there's a loss here or there, with the exception of Gordon Ryan. What do you make of that? Do you think that's the stars aligning a lot, or do you think there's credit to Danaher in the way that he thinks?
I'd say it's massive credit to Danaher and the community he's built. I feel like Dan Hardy talked about this on one of his podcasts, and it's your gym builds a community, and quite clearly the community Danaher's built, they've all got a similar mindset. Either they're attracted to that gym because they've got a similar mindset, or once they go to that gym, it instills this similar mindset, right? And this is, funnily enough, why me and Raj very much told off our fighter Garon when his interview was released, and he was a little bit boisterous, let's say. Me and Raj don't like this.
Just to interrupt you there, as much as I agree with you telling him off, I actually thought the promo was sick. Continue. And I did tell him that.
we don't like what that might, the type of fighter that might attract to Lions Gym, or the type of fighter it might breed from Lions Gym, right? Because again, we're very confident that it builds a community. You understand? So when you've got, I like to think I'm relatively humble. Same with Christoph, same with Melissa, all very humble, hard-working fighters. That's the community we want to build. We feel like this is where people are going to learn far better. And obviously Danhar's community is very much learning focused. Again, I don't know if it's clout. I'd like to be a fly on the wall, but they talk about training, 7 days a week for a new number of hours, every day, even Christmas Day. Like I said, it could just be clout. People are known to just blow smoke up their own ass and chat shit, but it seems very genuine, and the proof's in the pudding. They're all very, very good. So yeah, I wouldn't like to say if it is the stars aligning. I think it's the community he's built, as well as clearly Danhar is something special when it comes to a coach. I don't think when we look at any sort of fighting sport, we've maybe seen a coach like Danhar. Somebody who's so deeply philosophical and so deeply entrenched in systems, and in every single martial art by the sounds of it as well, not just jiu-jitsu, and has given up, his own life in the sense of he won't have a girlfriend, he won't, have any other sort of hobby, and he's that deeply entrenched in the jiu-jitsu and the martial arts that is paid off as a coach. But then also, I speculate if this is possible in MMA. If his training methods are possible in MMA just because of things like head trauma, obviously there's probably ways of getting around it with drills and certain reaction drills, etc. But I'd be curious if this training method is only really applicable to jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Because MMA can be quite devastating to your body, especially if you abuse it.
Yeah, and I think the explosiveness of a lot of the moves in MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying jiu-jitsu is not explosive, but every, if you take Gordon Ryan, for example, every explosive reaction in a jiu-jitsu match that his opponent might have, he's already planned for, and it's not going to knock him out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the explosivity in a mixed martial arts fight can just, you can get one punch KO. You can get your Korean zombie elbow,
mm-hmm.
Crazy finish, whatever. No, it is. Yeah, that's a really interesting point that you just brought up. I don't know. Although he has broken, you listen to him talk about MMA, he has broken it down into more. A lot of people break it down into striking and grappling, whereas he looks at it as the stages of the fight. So your shoot boxing, your clinch boxing, your cage. He calls it all boxing, cage boxing, grapple boxing, which is sort of how I've started thinking about that. And interestingly enough, in your training sessions that you've done with MMA Fight Team, you've effectively trained those areas. But I think that maybe that's where a lot of gyms fail. So maybe if the right person comes along, he could be successful in that. I don't necessarily think that it's Gary Tonin though. I'm not. Gary Tonin's good in one. I don't think that transfers into the UFC. That's my opinion.
I think there needs to be a certain nastiness for an MMA fighter as well. Yeah. As much as we say that GSP was a nice guy and a martial artist, etc., I like to think I can tell there's an element, there's a nastiness there. We all know that there's I mean, that's what his tattoo on his chest, that Japanese symbol or Chinese symbol, whatever it is. He talks about there's two sides to him. You know what I mean? And I mean, again, I do not know Gary Tonin personally, so I'm talking out my arse because he could have a nasty side to him, of course. But from what I can see, I just don't know if he's got that MMA nasty side. You know what I mean? Where you're almost happy to punch somebody and the referee not to stop and to continue to punch them.
Yeah. It's weird seeing you with that eye. You have a different look on your face when you fight. And when you finished that last fight, almost for 2 or 3 minutes, you were almost proud of yourself. That look on you didn't, when you have that look on your face, just is that it? Just you see what I just fucking did? I will do that to every one of you motherfuckers. And you didn't come out of it for 3 minutes. I think it was when your dad came in the cage afterwards that it just sort of switched. But I get what you mean by that. And I don't think he has it. That being said, I think maybe George St. Pierre is that his ability is a fight or flight response. So I think a lot of it's fear because he doesn't like competing.
Yes, yeah.
He hates fighting, and so I think he just has that built in him that he has to do this. Let's get it done, you know, as well as possible. I want to win, but let's get it done. And you know, he just kind of accepts the reality. He fights.
This brings us on to be fair, an important philosophical question. I can't remember who I heard talk about it, and I was trying to, you know, work out what motivates me more. And it was like that you ask a fighter, what motivates you more? Is it the ecstasy of winning, or is it the fear of losing? Because for every fighter, one of those two things is going to motivate you more. But what is it? So when we talk about GSP, it does almost seem like the fear of losing maybe motivates him more. I'm not too sure. But again, I don't know him personally, so talking out my arse. But yeah, for each fighter, one of those two things will motivate you more. You know, and it's interesting to see what fighters it does motivate more. You know,
just to be clear, you're not saying that those are the only two motivating factors.
No, of course.
No. What is it for you?
Yeah, it was something that I couldn't really work it out because I don't feel like there is definitely an ecstasy of winning, definitely, and there's nothing quite like that feeling. But again, I feel like it's almost the ecstasy of not losing, bizarrely, if you know what I mean. It's very strange. It's like a weight's been lifted off your shoulders. And then, of course, it's the question of, why if you're so scared of losing, why do you even fight in the first place? And I don't fucking know. You know, it's bizarre that I put myself in that situation where I almost force the fear of possibly losing upon myself just so I can overcome and not lose. It's very strange because, I mean, yeah, winning is definitely fun, but I definitely feel like the fear of losing outweighs, you know, the enjoyment of winning. But I don't know. I don't know for certain. I haven't quite put it down to it, you know.
Interesting. I was talking to Dean about sort of similar stuff to this a couple of weeks ago. I think, so I haven't competed a lot, and things haven't gone particularly well when I have competed. You know, looking back at, because I've got videos of all bar one of any sort of competition that I've done. Looking back on that, I know, you know, I mean, I think this is the point of like normal people doing martial arts is you know, you're better the next day than you were before, and you can look back and go, I would beat that guy if we were in a fight. I think that fear of losing definitely stopped me for a while from competing, and almost stopped me being motivated from training. And in terms of MMA and really doubling down on MMA, because, you know, it fascinates me. MMA genuinely, as a logical person, fascinates me in terms of the systems that, as Danaher highlights them, but also the artistic side of it, because I'm a very creative person. The fear of missing weight, you know, sort of was a deterring factor. Dean basically said to me, he said, if you miss weight, you miss weight. You won't, but if it happens, it happens. And then you can, like, if you train hard enough and you give it your all, you know, if you lose, you lose, but like, that's not the mentality you'll have on the day. You'll go in there and you'll compete. You'll do what you've trained to do. And if you're better than the person, you'll win. If you're worse than the person, you'll lose. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't compete. You know, that's why we train. And I don't know that, just him saying that sort of, I was like, oh yeah. Like, it wasn't, like, the idea that if I come back on a loss, you know, if it's jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or MMA or boxing, whatever it is, if I come back from a loss, the gym isn't going to be there talking about you, talking about, like, that person sucks because he lost or whatever. It's like, no, it's like you did it. I think, I mean, it's an old cliche, but it's better to do it and fail than to not do it at all, right? I don't know. That was a really interesting conversation that I had with him. Maybe he has different experiences from someone like yourself. Obviously, you've been very successful in pretty much everything you've done, but you're also a very competitive person in that sense. When do you think do you think you've always been competitive?
Yes.
Have you always wanted to take part in things?
Yeah, well, if I rewind the clock to when I was younger, I was not a sporty kid. I remember playing rugby just because, like, I like the idea of like being manly. You know, like I remember always watching my dad, and my dad was like manly. You know, so of course that was like a motivating factor to be like my dad. And I think maybe a competitiveness was built off being a younger brother. So I think being a younger brother, and I think I'd love to see if there's ever been like a statistic made, but I would maybe theorize that a lot of MMA fighters are younger brothers or younger siblings. You know what I mean? I think that can motivate people to motivate men to, you know, have that competitive edge, you know, by having older brothers. But I think that probably, I mean, not that my two older brothers were really into sports or anything like this, but I think that does definitely make you a little bit competitive. You want to be like the best brother almost. And then seeing my dad, you know, I wanted to be manly. So like I said, I fell into rugby when I first got to secondary school, 11, 12. But I was not good. You know, it wasn't a fantastic club. You know, it wasn't like it was a massive training regimen. You just train once a week, maybe have a game once a week. You know what I mean? It was just, it was just what it was. You know, we were probably the fucking worst team in Coventry. I think we won one game ever. Like, we were a very bad team. But yeah, so I've definitely been competitive, but it wasn't until like I wasn't really competitive with sports until I found MMA, right? Like I was all competitive over, I don't know, like Xbox or, you know, like even now, like fucking when me and Melissa drive home, say if we're driving home in different cars, we're almost racing each other.
Yeah, I've seen this.
You know what I mean? We're just, who's going to get home first? Yeah, like, so I've always been competitive for sure in like stupid shit. But it wasn't until like I found MMA that I was super competitive into sports, and I then started to understand things like training and so on and so forth, and, you know, helping the outcome of the competition via training, whatever.
Is there any part of you that feels some sort of responsibility to your coaches? And is that ever a motivating factor? Like, they've put so much work into me, I owe it to them to put the fucking beans in, basically.
Interesting point.
Or it doesn't even have to be coaches, for example, Raj, you know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's not crossed my mind so much about the coaches putting work into me, because I think being a coach as well, I mean, I've coached pretty much since I was a blue belt, I've had to start to coach, right? So I think you start to understand that even if my student was to lose, it's not like I hate them, you know what I mean? Or like I'm angry that they've lost. It's not like... So I think as a fighter, I understand that the coach isn't going to be deeply upset if I lose, if you know what I'm saying. But of course, motivating factors are things like families and people that come support me, even if they don't come support me, but support me just, you know, by wishing me good luck and stuff. I do feel like I've got the weight of them on my shoulders, right? So I remember, for example, with my Muay Thai fight, I almost intentionally did this. I didn't sell any tickets. My family didn't even come to watch this Muay Thai fight. And there was like no pressure, you know, zero pressure. But then obviously, my last fight, we sold over 150 tickets. Obviously, we've got people watching pay-per-views as well. People that are coming from other gyms that are still supporting me, you know, so there was a massive turnout. That's a lot of pressure, you know. And it's pressure because... yeah, you've got to... You're almost representing these people to some degree. You know what I mean? These people are saying, I'm supporting James. You've got to go out there and, you know, almost represent why they're supporting you, if you know. But yeah, so as far as the coaches goes, no, probably because I understand what it's like being a coach. But for sure, I feel the pressure of, you know, the people I'm representing. And again, I'm very proud of Coventry. I'm very proud of the United Kingdom. I've not yet represented the United Kingdom necessarily going abroad and fought, but I do feel like I represent Coventry and Lions Gym, especially. So, yeah, I feel like there's pressure attached to this.
As we start to wrap up, UFC, who interests you in the UFC right now? I kind of want to know generally, but also focusing on lightweight and welterweight.
So they would have to interest me in terms of there's almost like an algorithm to solve, like a puzzle to solve, or like there's excitement from the fight. There's a war. So obviously Gaethje, because we're going to war. Obviously Mason Jones, like I've already said, because we're going to war. These type of people at a game, they're going to go there, they're going to put the head down, and there will be strategy, of course, but it's like we're going to see whose heart is bigger type of thing. But then if I'm thinking of fighters that might interest me for strategy, of course you're looking at maybe somebody like an Islam Makhachev, because obviously there's a name attached to him now. He's getting a lot of credibility from people like Khabib and stuff, and it's almost like you steal their thunder. And there's going to be a massive strategy involved with overcoming such a certain skill set. I mean, even like Khabib, right? For somebody to go out there and beat Khabib, if you're not a superior wrestler, it's because you've had a superior strategy. That interests me as well, trying to find what strategy it takes to beat him. What will it take to beat him? But I'll definitely not say there's a certain person that I'm desperate to fight them. Like I said, there's a couple of people in the UK I'd like to fight just because I do. Although I don't know them personally, I do feel like there's a bit of animosity there on my part. Like I'd like to punch them in the face, because I've heard through the grapevine as such as what they're like as a character, and I'd like to punch them because of this. But yeah, when we're looking at the UFC, it's either going to be an exciting fight or an exciting fight through strategy.
Let me read you some of your posts that you put on Instagram and or Facebook recently. Many fighters embellish themselves with talk of violence. Very few fighters actually embody it. You mean that when you say that? Why put that out there?
So specifically why this is, I've been talking about violence and I've been using the word violence for a very long time. And I've seen a lot of fighters, again, like forget the UFC, because I think if you're in the UFC, you're probably going to be a violent bastard. So we're talking more on like a UK level, UK pros, UK amateurs. Like people that I know personally or know people that I know personally, etc. So I sort of know them as a character. So yeah, just throw UFC out of it, just on a UK level. I've been using violence and the word violence specifically for a long time. And now we're seeing like brands like Violent Money jump on the violent bandwagon. To be fair, I've got nothing against the brand Violent Money, but we're starting to see the word violent and violence be thrown around a lot more now. And a lot of fighters are using it and sort of, I think it shouldn't be a word that's taken lightly. Like murder, for example, or things like rape or whatever. These are not words that should be just thrown around, or Nazi. You shouldn't just call somebody a Nazi. There should be a very strong reason as to why you might use this word. Same with violence. But I see a lot of fighters in the UK use violence, and I don't believe that they understand what this word means. Look, again, I'm not proud of it, but I've worked on a door. I've committed acts of violence on people. I've even in the cage, whether it's illegally on the street or in the cage, I've been a violent person. I understand what violence embodies. I understand what I'm capable when it comes to violence, and I'm happy to do it to another person, another human being. And I think there's a lot of MMA fighters that use this word that maybe don't understand what it is. And they just use it for a bit of social media clout. So when I post this, it's almost aimed at these fighters just throwing around the word violence, because it coexists with a fighter. Fighter violence, yeah, it makes sense. But not every fighter is violent. You know what I mean? Not every fighter understands violence, and not every fighter wants violence. But I do. You know what I mean?
I think people sometimes forget that. Okay, when they say I'm a martial artist, not a cage fighter, it's like, I love that, I'm a fan of that, but at the same time, martial arts means violence, it means war, it's fighting. I think there's a lot of point fighters out there, or as you call them, bitches. No, I for sure get that, and I agree with you. It's not a word to be taken lightly. Another word not to be taken lightly, relinquish. When at Cage Warriors and at Graham Boylan, who I believe is the owner or booker of Cage Warriors.
CEO, yeah.
When are you going to relinquish your lightweights to me? That's a strong word, relinquish. not when I'm gonna fight for you. No, it's like you've already seen that, like, whatever you're gonna do to them, it's not gonna be good for them. It's not gonna end well.
And it's inevitable. Yeah, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, so like for me, like the relinquish, it's the outcome is inevitable. You know, it's already happened in some senses. You know, it's written in stone. You know, it's meant to be. So it's just down to when and whether Graham Boylan and Cage Warriors will allow their lightweights to succumb to it. That's sort of what that word means to me.
Do you ever envision yourself as UFC champ?
To some degree, no. Because I seem to take things step by step. So talking about an old UFC champion, Jai Herbert, and Jai Herbert's now in the UFC, and I've got a lot of respect for him because, again, he's representing the UK and more specifically West Midlands. You know, massive respect for Jai Herbert, and he seems like a genuine, nice character who embodies martial arts. But yeah, talking about Jai Herbert, I think there was an interview he talked about how, again, he has his goals step by step. So I think his first goal was, so of course, like, we've got dreams at a UFC. Of course, like, you know, I can, you know, sit there and visualize having a UFC belt around my waist, or even just to walk out to the UFC and what it will feel like to tell somebody you're a UFC fighter and to experience that and to, you know, have grandkids and one day show them a fight of you being in the UFC. I was there, I did that, I fought on the world's biggest promotion. These are definite goals that I visualize and I'd love to have. Like I said, I'd love to show my kids me fighting in the UFC, my kids to go and tell their friends their dad was a UFC fighter, is a UFC fighter, whatever. But again, going off like Jai Herbert's interview, he talks about like these small goals. So like the first one was Cage Warriors, and he got it. Okay, cool. I want to be a Cage Warriors champion now. He got it. Oh shit, cool. You know, maybe I want to defend my belt now. He did it. I want the UFC now. He gets there. Cool. I want to have my first UFC win now. You know what I mean? Like this step-by-step, small achievable goals almost, again, it means that the UFC to some degree is inevitable. But then also, you've got no control over the UFC to some degree, you know? So by making small achievable goals, we're heading in that direction of success. Where it takes you is where it takes you. You know, I can't say to Dana White, you've got to put me in the UFC. You know what I mean? He might not like you. He might do what he did to Ben Askren. You know what I mean? He might ban you indefinitely like he did to Paul Daly. You know what I mean? The UFC, man, let's fast forward 5 years, might go bust. You never know. Nobody really seen what happened to Pride happening. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that is an uncontrollable element that, maybe people invest too much into. And I think the idea of small achievable goals and visualizing them, I think is the smart man's approach. But of course, like I said, like being in the UFC and the idea of, like I said, passing it on to my kids and whatever, I can't imagine there's a greater feeling than that. I
think that's your work ethic manifesting. Like you focus on the little things, the little details, and you just go grind. Day in, day out, you're grinding. And I think that's what people with good work ethic do. You know, yes, there is a bigger picture, but you know, you need to focus on what you're doing, what's in front of you. And as long as you've planned that out to your best abilities, you've worked backwards. I want to be here, so I need to be here, so I need to be here, so I need to be here. And you've set those smaller goals, then you're making it more likely that it'll happen. You're manifesting that destiny, if you will. At Graham Boylan, at Cage Warriors, I heard the United Kingdom is going to recolonize the Yanks. I'm in.
So, yeah, obviously the words got out that Cage Warriors is moving over to America as well. You know,
full-time or...
What's that?
Full-time or...
No. So as far as I'm aware, they're going to be doing more shows. And they're just going to have some, like almost what Imagine the UFC do, but reversed. So the majority of their shows, as far as I'm aware, are going to be in the UK, but they're going to be popping some shows over to America as well. Again, as far as I'm aware, there might be more to it, less to it, whatever. But there's talk of them going to America. That's more or less a done deal. So, as has already been stated on this podcast, I'm very proud to represent the United Kingdom as an MMA fighter. in terms of represent what we've got here as coaches.
Do you think it's more representing your sport for the people, giving more people in the country, in the area, access to it rather than the country itself, rather than representing the country itself?
Yeah. So, for example, when I first got into MMA, the UFC almost seems unachievable being in England, because it's like you're told, no, if you want to be successful, you've got to go to America. You know what I mean? So again, the more people, and again, talk about Jai Herbert, talk about Leon Edwards, why these guys are so inspiring, Jimmy Wallhead and Andre Winner, of course, being my coaches, but why these guys are so inspiring is because they're training out the UK and they've got to the UFC. It shows you how achievable it is, because they literally, I've seen him. He's there. Like Leon Edwards, I've seen him in the gym. Jimmy, I've seen him, I've spoke to him. I know him personally. He's been in the UFC, same with Andre. So it just sort of shows you how achievable that goal is. And I would also like to show that to the future generations of, possible MMA fighters in the UK as well. I think, again, talking about that, Leon Edwards talked about this in an interview, and why that really impressed me as a characteristic is he talked about wanting to inspire the future generations of people in Birmingham, and I really respect that, because that's what it's about. You think a bigger picture, you want these kids to, like I said, see him. There's Leon Edwards, he only lives in wherever, there's James Dixon, he lives in Holbrooks, and he got to the UFC. It can be done, you know what I mean? You don't have to move to America, you don't have to, be this unachievable superhero. You can just be a normal person that gets there,
Was there ever a point where your mum or your dad pulled you aside and said, I mean, not that you haven't had real jobs, I know you very much have, but listen, Jamie, this fighting thing, like, it's not a real career path. Like, we're worried about you, or like, you need to go and find something real. You need to find a real career. Was that ever a conversation that was had? Oh yeah, day one. So, well, my dad he would never really say much, so not really come out my dad's mouth. Like I said, maybe he talks about it with my mum. My mum's the voice behind it, so I can't comment on what my dad's thoughts were. But yeah, in terms of my mum, pretty much from day one, like I said, I seen MMA, and I said, that's what I want to do. I'm being an MMA fighter. That's what I'm going to do. No, you're like, instantly they said, you're an idiot. You're not doing this. And obviously my two older brothers have gone to university. My mum went to university, but later in the years, maybe late 30s, 40s, I can't remember. But she went to university later on. So they put a lot of value, and obviously my sister's in university now. They put a lot of value on. And just to interrupt, your mum's a techer, right? Yes, yeah. So, but I come from that as well, exactly. Where it's like education is everything. Yeah. So, so they obviously put a lot of investment into things like university, and I don't think it's something they did when they're young. So it's like, we want our kids to do it, So yeah, when I went and told them that I wanted to be a fighter, and I never enjoyed school. I was doing sixth form. I went, I did like a BTEC, then I switched to sixth form. Then I was doing all these little like higher education courses. I hated it. I really disliked it. What I did love and what was consistent in my life is MMA. I loved going to the gym. I loved being around people involved in the gym. Like I seen people at university, or I seen people at college and whatever. And I thought they were like me. They hated life, but they just did it, But everyone at the gym wanted to be there, loved it. They were passionate. It was, something that we all, enjoyed. It was, so I don't know. Yeah, my parents were very much anti it, but then. Like I said, talk about Raj, he helped me out a lot. He got me on like a personal training course and helped me get some sort of education that gave my mum confidence. My mum was confident that Raj would look after me, and then obviously now they've started to see, I'm relatively successful in the sense that I can, afford to pay rent by training people. I can afford to pay for a wedding, etc. They've obviously realised that, you can be successful in the sport, and that's what I like to try and tell people as well. Like Garo, one of my fighters, of course you got to be intelligent about it. You know what I mean? You can't put all your eggs in one basket, but success is there to be had. You don't have to be in the UFC. You don't have to be the world's greatest to be successful and make a career out of this sport. Would you say there was ever a time where you considered yourself to be poor because of this? No, I don't mean like. I think people misuse the word poverty. Yes. But, shit, I'm going to have to pay this electric bill, so we're going to have to eat less food or shitter food this month. So I've always had the mindset, if I haven't got money, I'll just work more, So
yeah, I've never been poor in that sense. Whatever I needed, I always had, because I'll just work more. You know, I've always had the capacity to work more. I've always had friends that could either give me jobs.
Yeah.
So, you know, like at one stage, you know, Melissa was out of work and I had to pay for everything, right? This is the stage where I'd be working the door, you know, I'd be getting a few hours sleep on certain nights because there was no two ways about it.
Yeah.
You know, I had to pay. You know, it was either that or I had no money. You know, so I've never like stopped and thought, man, I'm poor. You know, of course, there's going to be people with more money than me, but again, yeah, like I said, people misuse the word. It's I don't think it's crossed my mind. You know, also this is something that I'm trying to tell Melissa more and more. Like when we look at cars, is I think people put value on things that they maybe shouldn't. And again, it's what I try and tell Garon with his fucking tracksuits. You know, it's like when you spend all that money on a nice car. Again, I've got a nice car, but when you get like a nicer car, somebody's always going to be out there with a nicer car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you sort of get this nice car, and you're like, well, this hasn't added anything to my life. It does the exact same thing as a shit car, but it's just costing me more.
It's a word that I used to describe you the other day, which is something I've been thinking about a lot, but I've never used it to describe you, was minimalist. You know, you see your flat, you're a very minimalist person. It's a nice flat, you're a very but it doesn't have a lot in it.
Yeah.
Everything there has at least some either purpose or it adds value to your life. Is that something you actively pursue? Have you ever thought of minimalism before?
Yeah, This me and Melissa, funnily enough, literally talked about this last week. How like we were laughing around saying I'd like to have less in my flat. You know, I mean, I get really stressed out. Like Melissa's seeing it more and more now. But as soon as so you've been to my parents' house. My parents like the opposite. My parents have got fucking loads of stuff.
Typical family house.
Yeah,
yeah.
And, like there's Christmas, there's decorations everywhere, and don't know, I love going to my parents for Christmas, but I get stressed. You know, like I'm sitting there and there's stuff everywhere. You move and you knock over a thing, and it's like fuck me. Like I like to just not have any. I like to have a sofa, and that's sort of it. You know, I could probably just sit in a room with a sofa, and I'm gonna be like, whew, this is relaxing.
Yeah,
you know?
for
So
sure.
I definitely, I don't understand why, but it just, man, I've probably got some weirdness going on in my brain, but it makes me feel far more relaxed. You know, like if my house isn't not necessarily clean, like I've got to disinfect everything, but if it isn't tidy, I won't be able to do like my to-dos. You know, I won't be able to plan my lessons or anything. I've got to make sure things are tidy. Then I can sit down and, whew, not cool. Now we can watch the fights. Now I can do my to-dos. Otherwise, shit starts to hit the fan. So obviously, what makes that easier is if you've got less stuff. So I'm definitely an advocate of having less stuff. You know,
I'm a big fan of that idea as well. To be honest, this isn't me. You mentioned being at college and like everyone else being there being miserable and stuff like that. I remember being at uni in my last year, and it was my second year, but it was my last year as well, and being surrounded by people in tutorials who were, I mean, not miserable for being there. They were super into maths, or they were super into engineering or whatever they were, you know, and they were looking forward to going into a career in banking or finance or whatever. And like, if you're into that stuff, fair enough, like fair play to you. You're going to make a lot of money. But I remember just like being asked to do assignments and focus on like careers and focus on like areas of interest. And one assignment I had to do a presentation on something, and I chose like the maths behind writing and showing music and stuff like that. And no one got it. No one understood why the fuck I would choose something like that. And I didn't really want to do it either. I wanted to talk about jiu-jitsu, and I wanted to talk about a gig that I played the night before. And, you know, they looked at me like I was weird. They looked at me like I was mad. Just like, what you're doing a maths degree. You could finish this and go, you will start at like 23, 24K and only move up. And I just couldn't relate to that. I just like, you know, I had these two things that I was so passionate about at the time, and still am very passionate about. And whenever I was there, you know, whenever I was at a gig or whenever I was at the gym, I was happy, and I just felt at home. To this day, it's a struggle to get me off of the mats, because I will just sit by the wall and just chill and just be present, you know.
Because you got similar people there. So again, this is where I'm blessed in the sense that I worked, you know, as a doorman in nightclubs, and I started to see, you know, my old friends that had gone to uni had got good degrees and maybe got good jobs, you know, they're earning 30, 40, 50k a year, whatever, but they're fucking depressed. And so what they do is they go to the nightclubs Friday, Saturday, you know, a Monday in Casbar's case, and they sort of drown their sorrows, and then they rinse and repeat. And that's going to be their life literally for like the next 30, 40 years. Yeah. But this is why I love the gym, because even if somebody's doing that and they're, you know, they've got their normal job that they might not dislike, but we're all in the gym sharing the same passion. You know, like I said, I don't think people have to, you know, like obviously you're passionate about music and martial arts. Like you don't necessarily have to just do music, just like I don't just necessarily have to just do martial arts.
I couldn't.
What's that?
I couldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. Like myself. Like I'm only blessed now that I can now. Like I had to work the door. I had to work in a corner shop to facilitate my passion, right? But I still had that passion, you know. But that's like the beauty of the gym is everyone's there with like the same sort of passion. That they all want the same. They all want to get better, and that's why everyone's such great friends in the gym. I've never really gone to a gym where I've not been friends with somebody.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I don't know. There's just people are there with a greater purpose. Whereas when you go to like nightclubs and stuff, like I said, people almost want to drag you down. You know what I mean? It's like I said, they're almost there drowning their sorrows. It is very, very strange. And that's why I love the gym so much. I love everybody in the gym because they've all got a similar sort of goal. You know, but to be fair, like it doesn't necessarily have to be a thing. Like, because I was speculating about this the other day with my parents. Like, my parents haven't got like a hobby or a passion. They don't have.
I find that weird.
Yeah,
when people do that.
That's what I mean. I found that's why I was speculating, because I was like, how do my parents live? Like, they don't have any sort of sport. They don't have like music or even a video game or something like this. They just sort of watch TV. But then also thinking, I like to think my parents have made some absolutely fantastic kids. Like if I look at like myself, obviously I'm hugely passionate about martial arts, and I'm now successful in the sense that I can afford to pay and live just by doing what I love, you know. And my sister's obviously very passionate about music and drama, and that's what she's doing at university. My two brothers about filming and camera stuff, and that's their job. So literally my parents' passion, if I think about it, must have been their kids, right? Otherwise they wouldn't have made such successful kids. And when I mean successful, I don't mean earning millions, but successful in the sense they're doing what they love. Yeah. You know, and that there is credibility to my parents, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was, you know, Gary V. Gary V, entrepreneur, he was on Joe Rogan one time. He's very much an advocate of self-awareness. He's not, you know, he likes the hustle mentality as well, but he said self-awareness over hustle all day. Like, if you want to make 20,000 a year, you know, I don't know, you fucking posting content about the Smurfs, and that makes you happy, fucking do it. As long as you can afford to put a roof over your head, food in your belly, whatever, you fucking do that. You know, he's very much an advocate of effectively what you were just talking about, which is I would rather be smiling in my Honda than crying in my Ferrari. And the cool thing is, especially with like how social media and just the world works today, is you don't have to, you know, you don't have to settle to follow your passion. It's a graft. And, you know, some people are going to be successful and some people aren't going to be successful. That's just the way the world works. But, like, you don't have to settle. And I feel that you're a testament to that. Melissa's a testament to that. You know, I won't get into it too much, but when she switched over to PTs, it's like, I don't think she thought she was going to be as successful as she has been. And, you know, now she is effectively leading the women's and a lot of the kids classes and the fighters at the gym. And that's a huge thing. And she has her own fighting career. And I just don't think that she understood the impact that she could have with just, you know, with her knowledge and her ability and a phone, you know, because she put the work in with that as well. To wrap up, last piece of content. After your fight, a young man by the name of Lawrence Jordan Tracy posted, "Gonna need more than a few leg kicks in October." And you replied, "Just make sure you turn up this time, boyo. I promise not to stick it in too deep. Hashtag pray for Tracy." And that would have been bad enough. But you didn't leave it there, did you? No. You screenshotted that and posted it as an Instagram story with the caption, "This Wendy is going to be wishing I slipped him a roofie after I'm done defiling him," with the love heart. Hashtag violence is my salvation. Hashtag pray for Tracy. You don't like this guy, do you? Oh, by the sounds of it, maybe you like him a bit too much.
No, so I mean, look, it's all very tongue in cheek in the sense of like.
See, I know you.
I mean, look, I'm a violent person, like, so, and I truly mean that. Like I said, I some people, I'm
Like
a
I
nice
said.
guy. I'm a nice guy, but when violence is needed, I really enjoy violence. And this is why I had to stop working the door, because I liked violence a little bit too much. You know what I mean? And when the opportunity would get presented to me, I'd be a little bit too violent. So unfortunately, I'm a very violent person. Unfortunately, I've found just the job for this. And this is Lawrence Tracy. Lawrence Tracy has given me a reason, to be even more violent, and I'm very much looking forward to this fight. Look, I like I said, it's tongue in cheek in a sense that he's not said anything like that's going to offend me. He's not, went and slapped my mum. He's not went and said something about Melissa, or I don't know, said I've got a little dick or something like this. So I'm not that bothered. But I mean, if he does say any of these things, then But no, look, it's going to be a fun fight. I'm looking forward to having a little bit of drama. It's all very fun.
Has this been going on for a while, this beef?
No, funnily enough, this is the first thing he posted about it. Like I said, because he pulled out of our fight. This is why I got matched up against Dylan Manning. So Dylan Manning's opponent got pulled out. My opponent pulled out, hence why me and Dylan Manning got matched, thankfully. And Lawrence Tracy pulled out. It was a legitimate reason. I got a picture sent to me. He had a big old cut above his eyebrow. This was about 4 weeks before the fight, though. So, I could go out and say, well, look, that would be healed by fight time. But his excuse was, I can't spar, because he's got to wait for it to heal. It would be healed by the fight, but he can't spar 4 weeks out. And again, look, I could go out and say, my last fight against Alan Bukowski, I blew my knee out. I had a torn meniscus.
Blew your knee out on the stage?
Oh, yeah. No, I blew my knee. Well, yeah, my knee buckled in the fight, I blew my knee out 5 weeks prior to that fight. You know what I mean? I couldn't spar for 5 weeks in preparation to that fight. I couldn't grapple. My knee literally locked up in the fight. You can see it in the video. And I still went out there and fought, So, there's different levels of fighters. You know what I mean? I'm going to go out there and fight. If he's got a little cut on his head, sound, you don't want to fight because you can't spar. Look, the way I see a fight is, and I've said this before, I might, right now, right, I'm full of fucking Nutella, I haven't trained properly in about 2 weeks because I fought 3 weeks ago, whatever, Like I said, from head to toe Nutella, pure Nutella. But if we went outside and somebody spat on you, I'm going to run and nut him. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say, hold on, pal, give me 12 weeks. I'm going to need to diet a little bit. I'm going to need to get some good sparring in. And then, I'm going to fuck you up. You know what I mean?
You better be wearing the right size gloves.
yeah, you know what I mean? You're going to make sure we're in fucking 4 ounces. You better weigh 70 kilo. No.
Can't have shorts with pockets.
I'm going to fucking nut you. It doesn't matter. And so yeah, sometimes with MMA fighters, they want things to be all prim and proper. But look, the world ain't all sunshines and fucking rainbows, is it? Not every fight camp, not every fight preparation is going to be perfect. Sometimes you are going to have a bit of a cut. That's just the fucking nature of the beast, And if you choose not to turn up on fight time, cool. But that's down to you. That shows sort of what character we're playing at now. So look, he pulled out 4 or 5 weeks prior to the fight because he had a little, he had a vagina open up on his head. Is what it is, I just hope he turns up to this one.
Hey, all I'm saying is now you get to be 3-1 as opposed to 2-1 by fighting him. Yeah. So, that's not too bad. So that's October 2nd.
Yeah.
Golden Ticket Fight Promotion 16 at KK's Steel Mill, which is the same venue as you're at last time.
Yeah.
Do we know where the pay-per-view is going to be for people to watch?
No. I'd imagine Golden Ticket will post about the pay-per-view, and I'd imagine it'll be similar to what it was before, £10 or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, I'm praying by then a lot of the government madness will be over and done with, so it will literally be full capacity venue. Again, it'll most likely be a sellout. Again, I'd like to think I sell a lot of tickets. I mean, a lot of people have seen my last fight and they understand, how my fights are going. You know what I mean? My last few fights, although my last 2 wins have been very short, they've been very violent and fun. And my loss was even relatively violent as well. So, like I said, I'm gonna go out there and it's gonna be a violent affair. Whether I win or I lose, it's gonna be good fun. So I imagine I'll sell some tickets for this.
So you heard it, guys. That is Wolverhampton on October 2nd. Golden Ticket Fight Promotion 16 at KK's at Steel Mill. James Dixon versus Lawrence Tracy. Looking forward to it.
Definitely.
James, thank you so much for coming in and doing this. We've been going for nearly 3 hours now.
That is bananas.
Yeah. Your voice is going to be screwed for coaching tonight.
Oh, man. I can't talk for this long.
No, I really appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you for kicking this off again. It's been, I wanted to do this a few years ago, but now we've got the studio set up, so
this is wicked.
Absolutely smashing it. Where can people find you? I have your Instagram and Facebook handles here as well. So Instagram we got at james.the.lion.heart.dixon.
A lot of dots there.
There are a lot of dots. We also have your PT, which is at james.dixon.marshall.arts. Facebook at james.dixon.marshall.arts.fitness. And then if people want to book a PT with you, they can find you at James Dixon Martial Arts and Fitness on Booksy. Booksy, the booking app for fitness and hair and
for barbers and stuff.
Yeah, all that sort of shit. Apparently maths tutors can't go on that, but
can they not?
Nope.
No way.
No. It's all fitness and lifestyle and shit like that. But also it's expensive, so I can't afford that.
To be fair, they are really genuinely good though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like hats off to Booksy, they're actually too nice. They've actually learnt just that I'm very much just leave me alone. But they're like at first they're all messaging me. Oh, you want us to do this? You want us to do that and that? Look, I'm pretty fucking happy, pal.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
you're pretty much fully booked.
So you don't need to keep messaging me. I'm all good. I don't need any help. But they are generally very good people.
So you're offering martial arts and you're also doing your fitness stuff as well.
Yeah. So I'm not going to deny to people. I much prefer teaching martial art PTs. Like if somebody wants to genuinely really focus on their fitness, Melissa's boss was really into her powerlifting and wanted me to help out with her powerlifting. But look, I'm not going to blow smoke up nobody's arse, and I'm not going to sell snake oil and stuff. I know I'm not a powerlifting coach, so I pointed her in the direction of a friend that was a powerlifting coach, and she's doing really good things in the world of powerlifting now. So fair play to her. So look, if someone wants to get a little bit of fit, it's not that challenging. I'll get you fit. You know what I mean? But if somebody wants to really, become a bodybuilder, become a powerlifter, or get real fucking CrossFit fit, look, don't come to me. You know what I mean? I'm a specialist. If you want to fight, I'm the man. You know what I mean? If you want to learn a bit of martial arts, I'm your man. If you want to get a little bit fit, I'm your man. But if you want to get, like I said, bodybuilding, powerlifting, that type of madness, go to somebody else, please.
Lionheart, Jamie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good work. Appreciate this.
Yeah, come back anytime.